Hey everyone, we are back. It's GameFace episode 134 after a couple weeks off. Matt, in the entire time we've launched Sifted, the gaming industry has never been this barren and dry.
Very quiet.
It's insane.
Crickets even.
It really is. There was a huge opportunity here for publishers to jump in and put out a really good game right now and do really well with it, but just not the case.
Nope, we got The Crew 2 instead.
Yep, that's pretty much all we've got for the last couple weeks. I do want to apologize for not doing a show the last couple weeks. One was Matt was gone, and then last week there was just nothing to talk about. I've been watching some of the other podcasts, and pretty shocking that they've done shows. You know, they've just kind of cobbled stuff together.
Fair amount of discussion of snacks.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. There's been a lot of non sequitur stuff in those podcasts, which we may actually end up having to do eventually here on GameFace as well. We have to start talking about some films, television, and stuff like that to kind of get through this dry spell. Because if you look ahead, there's not a whole lot of relief on the way.
No, not until like near the end of August when you get that 1-2 punch of Shenmue 1 and 2 and Yakuza Kiwami 2, which, ooh, boy.
Yeah, we'll be working for it for the next month or so. Also, I should say right off the top of the show, next week, let me do my math. No, next week I think will be okay. The following week, we may have to do the show a little earlier because I'm actually going to Las Vegas for the weekend. I'm taking my annual vacation, my 3-day weekend to Las Vegas in a couple of weeks. So for that week, we may have to bump up the show to like a Wednesday or a Thursday, something like that. We'll work it out. But we are here tonight, and we are ready to give you guys a great show. I guess the benefit of waiting a couple weeks to do a show is that some topics have built up. Most of the stuff we're talking about tonight is not old stuff, but some of it was kind of like right on the fringe of a week ago. So let's just get right into it. We're going to talk first about Star Wars, again, something we talk about a lot on the show because there's a lot to talk about. We're both huge Star Wars fans.
There's nothing to play. So
yeah, and there's nothing to play. So Jade Raymond this week came out of her hibernation up in Montreal at EA's new studio Motive up there and went to Europe to accept an award. And a lot of the European press was there, and they caught her and did some quick interviews, and she had some very interesting things to say. The first thing that really struck me about it was that she was talking more about... So Motive's working on 2 games. It's working on a Star Wars game, and it's working on a brand new IP. And what struck me from pretty much all the interviews that she did was she spoke a lot more about the new IP at Motive than the Star Wars game. The Star Wars game, she didn't say a ton about. The new IP is basically going to be a games as a service. I mean, we kind of knew that already. It seems like that's EA's mandate or edict is that all its games now need to be service games that can sustain over the long haul. She did say that she's trying to find unique ways to approach that doesn't make it so it's not just another Destiny clone or an Anthem clone or something like that. But it struck me that, you know, Star Wars is this big license that EA has, and she didn't have a whole lot to say about Motive's Star Wars game.
I don't think that's very surprising.
Really?
We can't. As someone who has worked with Star Wars stuff, you can't say anything without clearing it through Lucasfilm first.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me at all that she would keep her mouth shut about that because she probably doesn't know what she'd get in trouble for saying. Like, you don't want, you know, the messaging on the Star Wars stuff is very tightly controlled by Lucasfilm and Disney and the license holders, and somebody speaking out of turn, just, you know, being caught by, you know, something like in a situation like that, like, there's no good that can come out of that for Jade. So no, it doesn't surprise me she'd stay quiet, because like the new IP, clearly she's more involved. It's her thing. She's spearheading it. She knows what the messaging needs to be for that. But I mean, if I were in her position, I would absolutely stay the hell away from talking about Star Wars, because you never know what Lucasfilm is going to hate you for.
Yeah.
Basically.
She did talk about Visceral's game that's now being reworked. And she said that people are going to be surprised that there's more of the old game in the final game than people thought. There was like 3 terabytes of art or something that they had already created for the game.
Yeah, you probably don't throw that out, really. I mean, Star Wars is Star Wars, no matter what the game's going to play like. The environment stuff is probably still valid.
Well, it sounds like it will have the same setting.
Yeah.
Some of the same characters. Same plot, probably not.
Yeah, I mean, it would still be, probably just, games as a service Band-Aid slapped on and some kind of co-op-y thing going on. It's probably not a total like crazy idea to think that what Amy Hennig was going to give us was going to be more of an Uncharted sort of thing, and that this is going to be more of a Destiny kind of thing. And Destiny still has a campaign, still has a story, it's still there. It's just, it's under the wrapper of, hey, grind and grind and grind and give us money for, cosmetic stuff. So, and we'll see. It seems like they've at least learned some lessons off of Battlefront 2. Not that it mattered really, because their stock is higher than it's ever been. Just once again, no one cares.
It's the mobile. It's mobile though that's really driving EA's bottom line.
Well, if you look at the breakdown, I mean, King is up there, but EA itself is over $1 billion in revenue compared to $500 million on King.
But even with EA, it's a lot. A lot of it's mobile.
It's mobile, yeah. But like it's they're expecting Battlefield and 5 and Anthem for the remainder of the fiscal year to be less than 25% of their revenue.
Yeah.
Like that stuff is not where their money's coming from.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So like the only reason the loot box thing even made any waves with Battlefront 2 is because Disney picked up the phone and said, "Hey, what are you doing with our license?"
Yeah.
They weren't reacting to us, to the gamers. They were reacting to Bob Iger.
Oh, of course.
So,
yeah.
And the shareholders don't care. All they see is the future path of making tons and tons of money. So yeah, the stock's doing great. EA's in a really good position. I think they're the most I think they have the highest market cap of any of the third parties except for Activision.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, partly because they have Blizzard, but like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they're doing just fine. But it does seem from E3 that they heard the core demographics complaints, and they're going to try to avoid that. Like I said, I predicted they were going to do. One of their bullet points for Anthem would be like, no loot boxes, and sure enough, there it is. So, I mean, I think it's fair to think that, whatever this EA Vancouver thing, built from the whatever they cobble together out of the dissected corpse of Visceral's game, is probably not. It's probably gonna be a fairly standard kind of Destiny sort of Star Warsy thing, which is like, hey, that's cool.
I'm fine with that, actually.
I'll play a Destiny game where it makes the blaster sound.
Would I have rather played Uncharted with the Star Wars skin?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
But the alternative isn't terrible.
No, I mean it'll be fine. But Hennig's game could have been one of the greatest Star Wars stories ever told.
And for me personally, it could have been one of the greatest games ever.
Yeah, she's one of the best writers in the industry and has been for a couple of decades now. So yeah, it's disappointing we're not going to get her Star Wars story, but it's not going to be a total disaster, I don't think.
It looks like Motive's game, you can't count on that till 2021.
No, I think they're a long way out. I think they're next gen easy.
I mean, it really looks like Respawn's game is going to be the next Star Wars game.
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, I mean,
probably
even
end of the year next year.
Yeah, I mean, even I thought that we were going to see more than just Vince in the audience saying the name. But, hey, I don't know.
Take what you can get, right?
I did run into him at Patrick's party, and I said, "It sounds. The title makes it sound like you're making the Star Wars game I've wanted for like 30 years." He's like, "We might be." He said that. And that's all he would say.
Yeah, I'm surprised he even said that.
He's like, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm surprised he said anything.
I haven't seen it.
I'm surprised he didn't just walk away when you said that.
Nah, Vince has always been good to me.
He's a good guy. And then the final thing that Jade Raymond said was, obviously EA has done a ton of research into Star Wars because it has to. And she said the thing that they've learned after spending a ton of money and time on research is that what Star Wars fans care most about is knowing more than other Star Wars fans.
That makes a lot of sense.
That what they were doing, like research for a video game, and the takeaway was, I want to make sure I know more than this other Star Wars fan.
Yep.
That's crazy.
That's one of the things that it does. That's kind of one of the things that bubbles up when you have a property that people are fans of that is just so broad and full of like meaningless arcana and stupid lore things.
Yeah.
And then this is canon, but that isn't canon, and this contradicted that, and that's part of the old EU, and that's part of the new EU, but the new EU is supposed to be canon, but then it was contradicted by this and that movie, and like just like keeping all that straight is like a full-time job if you're a fan of that stuff. So yeah, there is that competition level. I've definitely seen that happen. It gets even more pronounced when you start getting into like the fan organizations, like the 501st, and the people that dress up as the characters, and like they've got hierarchies, and they've got people that are you haven't seen life in action until you've seen someone having a power trip over being in charge of a stormtrooper cosplay organization. That is a very unique experience that I've had. I'm
wondering too if that data ties into some of the backlash against The Last Jedi, because it just appeared on Netflix and I just watched it again, and I enjoyed it more the second time than I did when I went to see it in the theater. Do you think maybe that attitude, that perspective on Star Wars is maybe part of why some of the fans kind of rebelled against The Last Jedi?
No, it's part of it, but most of it is it took a lot of character arcs in directions that are very logical extrapolations of the original trilogy, but not how people have come as a fandom to think about them, and not how not the direction the EU pushed them in. And it's just like a lot of it's the EU. The old EU, which is not canon anymore, but the old expanded universe, really did kind of follow Luke down that he became the most powerful Grandmaster Jedi ever, and the first comic.
That's what they wanted him to do.
Where first comic book that took place after the movies, like he walks out and uses the Force to like deflect AT-AT like blaster fire and like knocks it over with the Force, and like everyone's like, "Whoa, he's badass." It's like, but that is not what the Star Wars story was. It's not what Luke was about, and it's certainly not what Yoda was trying to teach him.
Right.
So some of it is just like toxic idiocy, but some of it is also, I think people were not prepared for the direction Rian Johnson took a lot of that in. I thought it was great, and some of it, some of that stuff got a little real, got a little self-introspective about what it meant to be a fan of Star Wars or be a fan of anything. And I feel like, you walk into a Star Wars movie, you're not always ready to feel that. Like you don't really think a Star Wars movie is going to make you look at yourself critically.
Yeah, you're right.
But Last Jedi does that a little bit, and maybe some people don't want that from Star Wars, and that's a valid complaint. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, I'm all for filmmaking at the expense of nitty gritty fan stuff. Like,
right.
I love movies more than I love Star Wars, no matter how much I love Star Wars.
Yeah.
I'd rather see a great movie, and The Last Jedi is a great movie.
Don't you think, though, that maybe some people were salty that they had spent a ton of time on learning the lore from things like you mentioned, comics and books?
Yeah, but that's already
And
gone.
then the movie just kind of made them look at themselves and say, again, introspection, watching the film, and saying, oh my gosh, I just wasted all this time. I used to be the Star Wars master in my circle of friends. Now a lot of the stuff I've told all them is not true or inaccurate.
Well, like, most of it already wasn't. Like, the expanded universe in 2012 was wiped away. Like, none of that matters anymore. Like, I don't care how much of a
Officially, it was wiped away.
Oh, yeah. Like, once Disney acquired it, they're like, yeah, we're killing the EU, and we're going to start over, and all our new comics and books and everything are going to be canon now, but, like, and they're supposedly going to hold it together. They're not really holding the extraneous material together any more consistently than the old stuff did. Like, the whole idea was like, oh, we're going to have this story group, and it's all going to make sense, and it's all going to fit together. No, it doesn't. Like,
Yeah.
And it also doesn't matter because it's a movie series, and if you're not reading all the novels that come out, you're still going to understand what the movies are about. You didn't need to read 4 prequel novels to understand what Solo was.
Right.
And so I would think that the morning of the expanded universe would have already happened. And some of the stuff in the expanded universe is coming back in, like Grand Admiral Thrawn, a fan favorite character from the old Zahn novels, showed up in Rebels, and so that's a real thing. You got Darth Maul still running around with his robotic legs in the CG, the Clone Wars series and stuff. Like they've recanonized a lot of that stuff. In fact, one of the episodes of Rebels a couple years ago, even they went to the planet where one of the big battles of Knights of the Old Republic, like in the backstory of Knights of the Old Republic, took place, and mentioned a bunch of stuff from that story, like by name. So like they kind of sort of half recanonized KOTOR, and like there were people thinking like, oh, maybe that means they're gonna take the KOTOR era stuff and do some movies with them later. So because clearly they haven't shut SWTOR down yet.
Right.
Like clearly they're not like they haven't been afraid, and neither has Marvel, another Disney holding, to just say these things aren't part of our brand anymore. We're just gonna shut it down, gazillion. So I think there's more complexity behind the scenes than you might think in that regard. But for The Last Jedi to be the thing that makes you realize the EU isn't relevant anymore, I mean you're about 5 years out of date.
They knew that
at
way
that
before.
point. Yeah, it's been gone.
To bring it back to games, do you think some of the stuff you've just been talking about might be a part of why the games are taking so long, particularly narrative-driven games? Because Battlefront, I mean, Battlefront had a campaign, the second one, but it kind of was interwoven with Rogue One, essentially. Do you think that maybe some of these games that are stepping outside of the bounds of the films a little bit, maybe getting tied up with approvals from Lucas and things like that?
It could have. I mean, clearly there's two problems right now, it seems, with Star Wars. One is that they're just not getting stuff out in a timely manner, and that's, I mean, obviously that's true of the games, but also, I mean, you know, Solo, they barely made that May release date. You can see if you watch it. The effects don't even look finished because they had to reshoot so much. They reshot. Rumor has it they reshot about 70% of that movie under Ron Howard, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And then they had to push Episode 9 back. I think that was mainly because Carrie Fisher's death.
Right.
Made them have to rework a bunch of stuff. So. And they got rid of Colin Trevorrow and brought in J.J. Abrams to direct instead. Which also, you know, he has to do his own pre-production. You can't just step into another director's pre-production work and take it as your own. You have your own ideas. You have to do your own work. Not that like he would steal Trevorrow's work, but like JJ has his own vision and he has to do it himself because that's how directing works. And so they had to push that back because the original plan was to have Solo come out in May, and then you're back to Star Wars coming out in May. Because it traditionally has always come out in May.
Yeah.
But now they had to push Episode 9 back from May next year to December next year. And you know what? I think Star Wars is a Christmas movie now.
Yeah.
I think it's time to admit that Star Wars is a December
That's when I saw
film.
The Last Jedi.
Well, that's where everyone's seen everything since Force Awakens. Because originally Force Awakens was supposed to be May 2015. They needed more time. JJ wanted to push it to May 2016. Disney said, no, you're going to release it in December because we need it this fiscal year. And they're the distributors, so they get to make that call. So they had it done in time for December. Yeah. And so they've been December movies until then. The plan was to move them forward up into, make them May releases again. But Solo finally made it, but Solo barely made it. And then Solo didn't make a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
And part of that is because...
You're saying before we shot, it's the first Star Wars movie to not...
It's probably the first Star Wars movie to lose money.
Yeah.
It hasn't even made $400 million. Which is astounding.
That is astounding.
You expect even something that's not, like as electrifying as like a numbered episode. It's still Star Wars. It's still got some. But
Han Solo.
Yeah, but that's kind of
one of the most beloved characters.
Yeah, but it's not Harrison Ford.
Right.
Like that's the thing people don't get, I guess, or maybe just Lucasfilm and some of the people making these movies don't get. Is like, so much of Han Solo and Indiana Jones are Harrison Ford.
Oh, yeah.
It's Harrison Ford and that that electric charisma that man has to just take these characters who really aren't all that well drawn or very fleshed out. I mean, Han Solo is a foil, not a main character.
Right.
He's a foil to Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is the starry-eyed boy with a destiny. Han Solo is the
grizzled
veteran, the grizzled rogue who murders a guy just to save himself the trouble of having to deal with him later, kind of thing. And then he grows to be this guy with a heart of gold who becomes a real steadfast member of the Rebel Alliance, and who's a very forgiving group, because if you notice, Lando Calrissian sells out the princess leader of the entire rebellion at the end of Empire, and by Return of the Jedi, he's a general.
Right.
So the rebellion will take whoever they can get, at this point.
Yeah. They're scrappy, man.
Well, as Lando says, somebody told him about my maneuver at the Battle of Tanab, and I'm like, that must have been some maneuver. So he's like, oh, well, you almost got several of our highest-ranking people killed, but then you turned it around. It was cool. It's cool. You're wearing a vest now. You're one of the Corellians. But Solo, I think part of it is because I think people aren't that interested in a prequel movie starring a character they already know what they need to know about them, played by a guy who doesn't remotely match Harrison Ford in terms of screen presence.
Yeah.
It's just not there. Even I, as someone who's a big Star Wars fan my whole life, I went and saw it. I forgot I was going to go see it the day. I forgot it was coming out that day.
Yeah. It shows the level of excitement wasn't there. Yeah.
And I was just kind of bored by it. And I've never been bored by a Star Wars movie. Even episode 2.
That's the worst thing you could ever say about a Star Wars
At the end of the Kessel Run, I'm like, is there another act in this movie?
Yeah.
Is it really? We're going to keep going? And I'd seen 2001: A Space Odyssey in 70mm that morning. Yeah. And Solo felt longer.
Oh, wow.
And 2001 has an intermission.
Yeah.
It's a long movie. But I think one of the other problems you ran into with Solo, and I think they would have run into it with any Star Wars movie released there, is Star Wars under the Disney era has not had really much competition. They have December
right.
kind of to themselves. And now you're in the middle of the summer. You've got movie competition. Infinity War came out 2 weeks before or 3 weeks before. Deadpool 2 was still had some legs on it. I mean, Solo was number one, but like it's too crowded and it's not there. And I think you need to accept that Star Wars is a December film now. So I think we'll move back to that. And in the same vein, you're seeing kind of this indecision as the production process moves forwards on these movies. They're firing directors, they're replacing directors, they're changing release dates, they're changing concepts. They're going to do an Obi-Wan movie, now they're going to do a Yoda movie, or maybe it's a Boba Fett movie. Now maybe we're just going to do the Obi-Wan movie. Maybe we're not going to do that anymore, and like stuff like that. And so I can absolutely see someone like Amy Hennig and Visceral, because Visceral doesn't sit still. Visceral has their own ideas and have a lot of things they want to do with stuff, and you can see that this week where they came, one of the Visceral guys came out and talked about what they had planned for Dead Space 4. And go read that if you haven't, because like it sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So I can totally see people like Amy Hennig and the Visceral guys. Guys and girls who want to push the envelope, and Amy always wants to do new stuff and explore new areas narratively. I can see that being a very contentious thing with the Lucasfilm story department, who doesn't quite, in my opinion, doesn't still quite seem to know what they want to do with these extraneous properties. Like, they seem to be pretty cool and okay with like going crazy with the episodes, because look, Last Jedi was a departure. I loved it, but I absolutely admit that is not the movie I expected to see when I sat down in that theater. And you got to wonder. But then, like, you look at something like Solo, and it's just like, they played it real safe with that, and some of the comic books go crazy, but then, like, they're not as widely known. So you got to wonder, with these big video game projects with EA, how much of this narrative discussion is, frustration with the license holder that just says, we don't know if that's really how we want to do this, and kind of, or we have other plans for this character or for this other thing. Like, I can see that being just a production nightmare.
Haven't you found, though, that game players are more open, or maybe the right word or phrase is forgiving, of side stories? It seems to me that people who play games don't necessarily need a Star Wars game that has Luke and Darth Vader and Princess Leia. They're much
Star Wars
more,
games never have, really.
Yeah, I mean,
Very
they're
rarely.
much more open to exploring new planets, new characters.
You've still got people pining for Kyle Katarn, for God's sake, and that guy was nobody. Like, that character was nothing. That was Alex Trebek as a Jedi. Like, there's no.
Do you think that's where there might be loggerheads between EA and Disney, though? Is that Disney's a little more careful? It's like, well, look, you probably need to have Luke and Vader and blah, blah, blah in a game to make it successful. And maybe EA's looking at the history of games based on Star Wars and saying,
that's totally
you absolutely do not. Like,
that's totally
it's
possible.
okay for us to write our own story with our own characters that people don't know about, and the audience is going to be receptive to it still.
Well, I think there's a constant tension there where, like, and I can totally also see that with, the people that are involved at EA. And, I have no evidence of this or proof of it, but, when I look at what Lucasfilm is doing, especially with the Star Wars story stuff, to me, not the episodes, just, the things like Rogue One and Solo, and supposedly the Obi-Wan movie is the next on the docket, but, like, to me, those Star Wars story movies, those anthology movies, they should have nothing to do with anything. They should be set in the Star Wars galaxy, but they shouldn't share characters. They shouldn't share events. They shouldn't share you shouldn't be doing all these movies about these characters we've already met. You should be going out to new places, going crazy with the settings. Show us new planets we've never seen. Show us new elements of this galactic society we've never heard of. Show us, if you got to mention Jabba or the Empire or whatever, like, cool. Like, it's the background setting. But, like, you should be able to walk into these movies and just like see something totally new, and that will get people excited. That will get people to see things in the new Star Wars stuff. Will always get people more excited than, hey, it's the characters but in a younger, earlier time.
Or now they're geriatric.
And it's just like getting to the point where, and that's a movie trend right now, is kind of the prequel thing, the prequel like origin thing of like, I mean, I even saw a trailer for that with Ant-Man this week. It was for, what was it? It was some like fairy tale thing. And it was just like, the story you think you know is much darker than you believe. And I'm like, what is this, American McGee's like, filmmaking school? Like, what is it? Yeah. And but I think like the this weird like fear that Lucasfilm seems to have from breaking away from like the established characters, the established brand, and just going gonzo with it. Like I can see someone like Amy Hennig wanting to go gonzo with it and just getting stymied at various creative opportunities because like, no, we want to, well, when does Vader show up and kill a bunch of people to make everyone cheer because Vader pulled his lightsaber out or something? Like,
I'm starting to wonder if maybe that friction, maybe why Amy Hennig isn't there anymore.
It's not impossible. And like also, it's probably not a coincidence that the one game they have gotten out in a smooth manner is just a game that completely recycles everything you've already seen.
It's just like an all-star lineup.
It's a greatest hits
like
of maps
and it's a
characters
shooter.
And it's a shooter. It's like it's the most baseline Star Wars game you could possibly make.
Yeah. So we're assuming Respawn's game next holiday season probably.
That's what they. I mean, I think that's what they hinted at. Yeah.
After no game this year. No. So we get Respawn's next year-ish.
I would guess Respawn's game by the end of fiscal at the very least.
Yeah. Then DICE, I'm assuming next with another Battlefront?
Maybe.
And then the year after that, we get
maybe
Viscerals?
Or Viscerals. I mean, Viscerals probably further along, I would think.
That's not very encouraging.
No, I mean, well, you're just gonna have to sit back, and like, you got to wonder what's going to be happening with the movies by then, because like Episode 9 is at the end of 2019, so that's a pretty good boost for Fallen Jedi. Like that's you get some good synergy there, but they got to be thinking hard about what they're doing with these Star Wars stories. Between are they going to take a year off? Are they going to push forward and still do the Obi-Wan thing? Are they going to change up everything? Like nobody knows. Like
but if anybody does know, you assume EA.
Are you going to jump right into a new trilogy? Like is that going to change how Disney wants to approach how the games are made? Like and that's so far out. Like and especially you're looking at things where like. You think about these things like the Marvel and the cinematic universe and Star Wars stuff, and you think there'd be like this grand plan for everything. Yeah. But it's all
written down. But all just following the path.
But I mean, Lucas even used to say that. I don't know how true it was. But
I know what the next 20 movies.
Yeah, it's all in here.
I remember that. Yeah.
But like, J.J. Abrams said he made his Episode 9 story pitch the Sunday after Last Jedi came out.
Wow.
So while maybe they have even Kevin Feige, the guy who runs Marvel, the producer that runs the Marvel Cinematic Universe, basically said like, for a long time, they announced all these movies, but it's like we knew Infinity War was going to be Thanos getting all the Infinity Gems.
And that's it.
And that was about it. It's like the details are like, we'll worry about that later. Like this stuff is more seat of the pants than you might believe. And that's not really how game development works.
No, it's not.
Like,
you can't do it that way.
No, it's not that agile. And like I'm wondering how much of it is like strategy synergy. It's like, oh, we want to do this thing. Well, we might be shifting our strategy with the movies, so maybe we should also have to shift our strategy with it. Well, you can't do that with the games or cancel them. I don't know. Yeah. So it's...
It sure seems like that might be something that might have something to do with Visceral's game.
Yeah, I mean, we probably never know the whole story there.
And this is a case where we probably really will never know.
No. Like
that stuff usually comes out eventually, but like this probably never will.
Like the best that I could maybe see happening is one day I meet someone that knows and tells me, and I can tell you, but we can't tell the other. Right. We can't tell that.
Or like, one time I get drunk with Amy Hennig somewhere.
Yeah, I don't think she would even. I mean,
no, even then.
You don't mess with the Lucasfilm.
I wouldn't recommend it for sure.
Like it's a bad scene.
Yeah. So as two huge Star Wars fans, it's not looking too good for games for quite a while.
No, I mean, I'm kind of prepared for that. Like I certainly, if anyone remembers my pre-E3 predictions for EA, I'm like I was saying like Respawn maybe next year we'll get a logo and a title this year, and I was half right. We didn't even get a logo. But it's like it's been a long time. Kind of in this current state of Star Wars gaming affairs, and the thing that I guess bugs me the most, like I'm cool with how long it takes to make these things. Like it was a rocky start. They got to get their own ideas together. It takes time, get it right. I'm cool with that. The thing I don't get is like in the meantime, couldn't you like remaster some of the classic stuff? Can you give me like a Rogue Squadron collection or like remaster the X-Wing and TIE Fighter games, or like...
Problem is, a lot of the old Star Wars games aren't very good.
True, but like that doesn't matter.
Like, we don't want a remastered Force Unleashed. Like,
well, Force Unleashed is backwards compatible. You don't need, that's too recent. I'm talking about the classic stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, I would play like a remake of the X-Wing and TIE Fighter games. I mean, they did.
You know they're never going to do that.
They should. I mean, they did put out like some remastery versions on like PS4 and stuff of a weird collection. I mean, it was the Super Star Wars from the Super Nintendo, Bounty Hunter, a terrible Jango Fett game from the I had it on the GameCube. I think it was on other things too, and a Jedi Starfighter, which was a decent space shooter, but like really shows its PS2 origins. And then they did I think Episode 1 Racer finally came out on GOG. But to me, it's just like you've got this crazy back catalog of these. Some of these games are they may not be the greatest games of their era, but a lot of them are the best Star Wars content of the era. Like Star Wars games kept that brand alive. It's
going to be that a lot of them came from different publishers.
Well, they all came from Lucas. Lucas owns all that.
Does it?
Yes. Lucas will never give up that kind of autonomy.
But you think about the developer that may have made that game, and it's like, wait a minute. How do you just cut us out of this? That's our code.
But they own it.
Huh.
I guarantee you, Lucas never gave up rights to things. Like they will always have that strength. Maybe they would have to negotiate with Nintendo over like if they want to do like a Rogue Squadron collection.
Right.
But like
that's what I'm thinking.
I don't think you really have to go get Factor 5's permission or anything.
Interesting. So there you go. Star Wars, the horizon for Star Wars in games is not looking bright.
Because I think under those auspices, I'm pretty sure anything you did on a Star Wars game was essentially work for hire for LucasArts.
Yeah.
So they would not really have to go, because almost everything that I mentioned has been released on GOG. I'm just saying they should release it for consoles as well. Console players should also get a chance to play some of these classics, or at least scratch the Star Wars itch a little bit.
They need something.
Or the
it's grim right now.
I mean, they updated Battlefront.
If we get Respawn's game next year, and then we get another Battlefront, do I even really care about that Battlefront?
No.
Not really.
But then they even surprised me in the sense they updated Battlefront 2, the classic Battlefront 2, to suddenly be playable again. And like, clearly Pandemic didn't give anybody permission. Like I think
fans took over Battlefront 3.
Yeah.
And that's like coming out as like a legit game here in the next couple months under a different name, but. Yeah. But still, so there's one way, at least the culture, the fans are trying to keep some of that stuff alive. I've had enough
Battlefront stuff, though.
Me too. I don't need another one. Like, if I don't get another Battlefront for 6 or 7 years, totally cool. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, to me, Respawn next year, maybe Battlefront the next year, that's some slim pickings, man. That's a big license to have.
I mean, unless Visceral's further along and they're the 2020 game.
Yeah.
Which is not impossible.
No, it's not. Depends on how much they scrapped and how much they kept.
I feel like you've kind of pushed your luck with the Battlefront thing as much as you can for a while.
And you've made a lot of money off of it.
Made a ton of money. Give it a rest.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like Battlefront 2 can live on and keep being updated for a while, and clearly that's what they're doing. They have a pretty long roadmap. I feel like the content a little sparse. Spread across that road, because I think the stuff
they're trying to draw it out because they know.
Oh yeah, but I think the stuff they announced at E3, like everybody was thinking, oh, it'll be like August, like they'll put out those, and now it's like, oh no, it's like one character in August, one character. It's like goes out through like December or something. It's like that's a long time to draw out General Grievous.
What are they gonna do though?
Right,
I mean, they kind of have to. It's survival. So. We'll see. Right now, it's not looking too good for Star Wars with video games. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about The Witcher. So I think we all know already that there's going to be another Witcher game.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be a lot more Witcher games. They're hugely successful. Put CD Projekt Red essentially on the map as one of the most profitable developers in the industry. Mm-hmm. This week, some word trickled out that the next Witcher will not follow the same story arc as the trilogy. Not that big of a shocker.
They've said that before.
Yeah, I think that's actually been mentioned before. Just for whatever reason, this week it's been a big
people
story.
are talking about it, but it's like, I mean, I remember that when it was around the time I think the first DLC for Witcher 3 came out, because it had been long enough that they could kind of talk about the ending a little bit more openly. And there was like, The Witcher is bigger than Geralt. I mean, their original plan for The Witcher 1 was to let you create a Witcher character, and they just ended up deciding that Geralt was too central to the universe and just to not use him as sort of the main character. But there's tons of stuff you could do with. I mean, there's a huge world there. There's various places. I mean, you see little glimpses of it in like the places like the DLC took you to was it Toussaint?
Yeah.
Like the equivalent of like a kind of a France-Italy mashup sort of thing. Like there's a lot of directions you could take it, and especially in the terms of kind of what they're doing with Cyberpunk, where you create your own character.
Right.
Like that's a totally viable way to do another Witcher game. I would also love to see them remake the first one into something that's playable today.
But wait, let's rewind a second. So are you saying that you think wholeheartedly that Geralt will not be in the next Witcher game?
He won't be your character.
Yeah.
I mean, he could be in the game.
You think, without a doubt, that that'll be the case?
That you won't play as Geralt?
Yeah.
Yes.
How come?
Because 3 is the end of Geralt's story.
Yeah.
Like they've always said that. It's the end of Geralt's story. You will not play as Geralt again.
Can you think of another franchise, though, that had a trilogy with one main character and then either switched to another main character or gave you the ability to create your own character for the 4th installment?
Devil May Cry.
Yeah.
They switched to Nero in 4.
No, you're right.
And it looks like they're sticking with it for 5.
Yeah.
Arguably Metal Gear. Because like at a certain point, that series really switched over hard to Big Boss.
Yeah. Although to most people,
really
it was
the same. Yeah, I mean the clones.
To most people would say it's the same character, but I hear what you're saying.
Jedi Academy. You played Kyle Katarn for 3 games, and you played your own created character for Jedi Academy.
Yeah. So there are some examples of it.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, you can pass that buck or that. I mean, I guess that's not really the that's not the phrase I'm looking for. You can pass the torch.
Yeah.
In a way.
What existing Witcher characters do you think maybe the story should be based around? Ciri?
I mean, you probably could do something with Ciri. I think she works better as like a story complication in a way.
She's probably the most beloved character in The Witcher, other than Geralt.
Other than Geralt,
seems like a lot of fans really resonate with her.
Ciri is from the books, and she and Geralt have like that kind of the father-daughter relationship that kind of underpins the whole kind of emotional thrust of the late Witcher books. And people were kind of waiting to see her. If book fans were waiting to see her in the series, and finally she shows up in 3, and that's good. The issue with Ciri is that she's sort of a demigod.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to build your game around. I think
like having like Superman. It's like, how do you make a compelling game with Superman?
I think it's more likely that in another Witcher game, we would maybe jump ahead a significant number of years from the end of The Witcher 3, and you just create another Witcher. Or they could go further back, because sort of the backstory of the Witcher thing.
Play is like Geralt is like a preteen.
Geralt.
Okay.
Sheesh. They say it 4,000 times in the game. They drill the pronunciation of these characters into your freaking head. The backstory of the Witcher thing is basically like, in the conjunction of the spheres, monsters were let onto Earth, and humans had kind of difficulty with that. And at some point, they basically invented this Trial of the Grasses thing, where you were able to do these horrible things to these young boys that caused them to mutate, and a bunch of them died, but some of them survived and became what was known as Witchers. Mm-hmm. And by the time of the games, the time of Geralt, basically the monster thing was sort of under control, and other people knew how to deal with them. It was not, it was not like this kind of crazy plague of monsters anymore. It was just sort of an occasion. People got used to it. People got used to the idea of like, there's a griffin in the woods, don't go in the woods. Like if there was a bear there,
Right.
And it became part of everyday life. And so Witchers became less and less necessary, and they started to be seen as sort of freaks and monsters. And Witcher. By the time of Witcher 3, Vesemir, who's your father figure / trainer guy, he's something like 200 years old or something, because Witchers live a long time, and he talks about how they haven't done the Trial of the Grasses in like a century or something. Like they basically they don't, because even the Witchers don't like it because it's a horrible experience, so they don't want to do it to any more young children. Ciri did not go through it because they didn't want to do that to her. Yeah. In the end, it doesn't matter because she has Elder Blood and can teleport to other dimensions. So who cares whether she can like see in the dark at that point, But so Witchers are kind of past their age. I could see them jumping back a few hundred years to like, in a period immediately after the conjunction of the spheres, which unleashed all the monsters and the elves and everything on the world, and sort of in the heyday of Witchers, where like just to kind of change that up and sort of so that because that means there's more Witchers running around, and it means you have more freedom to kind of create your own character and sort of fit into the world in that way, and it's a very different existence from because Geralt's one of the last of the Witchers, which is a nice premise. It's a great premise. Is like he's one of the last Jedi basically. Because he is pretty much a Jedi crossed with a Ghostbuster crossed with Batman.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
Yeah.
Which is like a really good three things to be.
That's it. If you're going to be made of three things, that's pretty much the ideal three.
So I could see them making a game where you jump back several hundred years and kind of play a self-created Witcher in a more in a darker, earlier time, or you jump ahead and really explore kind of the real fall of magic, or maybe even the rise of technology in that universe would be interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Like an industrial revolution sort of thing.
Absolutely.
And what place Witchers have in that.
One thing that's a little different about The Witcher is that it kind of took the third installment for him to really kind of become a gaming celebrity, for lack of a better phrase. Whereas, like, you look at Uncharted. First Uncharted, Drake, people loved him. He was an icon right out of the gate. It took a long burn before Geralt became the hero that he is. And now he's in Soul Calibur. And so it does seem a little odd to me that you spent all that time building him up and finally kind of get him where you want, and then you're just going to drop him.
There's nowhere else to go with him.
Yeah.
Story's over.
I mean, that story's over. You can always just start another.
Yeah, but why use him?
Because you spent all this time making him an icon.
That's how you end up with shitty stories. Like that's the great thing about CD Projekt is like they're like that was Geralt's story.
Because they haven't followed the books for a while, right? They've actually went past the books.
Oh, the first game starts after the books,
right? Yeah.
Because in the end of the books, which if you've played any of the Witcher games, like basically he ends up in a riot, basically an non-human riot, and gets killed. And Yennefer gets killed defending him, and Ciri saves them and teleports them out and leaves them on this island, like this paradise island, to live out the rest of their lives. And then they get captured by the Wild Hunt. And the first scene in The Witcher 1, first Witcher game, is him running in kind of this fevered daze from something, and you can't tell, and he's injured and he falls over. And what that is he got away from the Wild Hunt and lost his memory and was injured, and the other Witchers find him and take him back to Kaer Morhen and nurse him back to health, and he doesn't remember what the hell happened. So that's basically how CD Projekt Red were like, we want to use him. How do we get him out of that situation? Well, this is how we do it. And then the whole trilogy is basically about him piecing all that back together and finding Yennefer and finding out what happened to him and why he did what he did and why he ended up where he was and who these Wild Hunt guys are and what he can do to kind of take revenge on them, and then finally remembering Ciri. And I mean, it all kind of flows together real well. Part of the problem, I think, is the first game was never on consoles, so you didn't have really mainstream breakout appeal. Also, it's a very heavily modified version of the Neverwinter Nights 1 engine. I mean, it's not a playable game.
There's a reason it wasn't on console.
Unless you got to really meet it halfway.
Yeah.
And which is why I think if they could finish that remake they're working on, Rise of the White Wolf, would be a very good addition. Also, that means that you could, because Witcher...
I saw somebody give you props for that on the site this week, actually.
Yeah, Witcher 2 is, because Witcher 2 is pretty remasterable. So again, and you do the remake of that, you can bundle all three of them as a trilogy, sell them for the next 2 generations. Like, that's instant income forever. Like, you're in GTA 5.
But those games are not easy to create either.
No.
It's not like a Crash Bandicoot and Insane trilogy.
No.
It takes a lot more work to...
But I think CD Projekt Red is big enough and funded well enough that they could have
absolutely do it.
A little corner working on that.
Yeah, for sure.
And frankly, I mean, if you play Witcher 2 backwards compatible on Xbox One X, look great.
It does.
Like, it's fine. The other thing about Witcher 2 is it's just a little jankier than 3. Like, they're getting there.
I mean, it wasn't even just a character that it developed over time. It was everything. The engine, the combat, everything.
You can tell Witcher 3
slowly over those.
Well, you can tell Witcher 3 is like, this is what was in their head.
This is what we wanted to make
originally,
in the first place.
Yeah. Because Witcher 1 has big open environments and you solve things. Everything kind of unfolds organic. Same way. It's just
poorly
clunky.
Executed,
It's like, what can you? I mean, it's the Neverwinter Nights engine. You can do you only do so much with Aurora.
Yeah.
And I remember asking, back when they were first working on Witcher 2, and I'd played Witcher 1, and I went and I would talk to them about it a little bit. I'm just like, well, I was asking about the making it work on the Aurora engine, the first game, and like, the looks they'd get on their faces were just like, you could tell they were remembering a horrible thing. Like you could it was just like it was a time they didn't want to talk about. It was just like cramming everything they wanted to do on that engine. Like, and one of the guys was like, it wasn't the Aurora engine anymore. It was something else. It was what we made. It was, you know, what we put out was not real. I mean, it was built on that, but we ripped it apart and put it back together 3 times, and it didn't matter anymore.
So also this week, CD Projekt Red I think what happened was a lot of interviews were conducted at E3, and then they just got published this week. But it doesn't look like Cyberpunk is coming anytime soon. Oh no! Like literally, like 2-3 years from now. Yeah. So when are we going to see the next Witcher game? Like
after that,
like 6 or 7 years from now?
Maybe. I mean, I think we're in.
That's so long.
But yeah, but we're in Bethesda territory there, right?
Yeah.
Because Starfield, you know, Todd straight up said that's next gen, and then Elder Scrolls 6 is after that.
Yeah.
So we're in a whole new era of looking way down the road because there's nothing else coming out.
It's a good thing Witcher 3 sold as well as it did.
Oh, yeah.
Because otherwise, having development schedules like that would bankrupt most studios.
Yeah, well, I think they are...
And also, they're kind of self-published. They don't really have to give
They're very self-published. They also own GOG, which makes them a fine amount of money, I'm sure. And they're also very heavily subsidized by the Polish government.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
so,
they're in Europe.
Because they're kind of some of the favorite sons of Poland right now.
As they should be.
Yeah. So I think they're in a really good spot to keep making great games and to keep that very pro-consumer attitude they've had since, frankly, the beginning, when The Witcher 1 came out and had all these problems, and they put out the enhanced edition. If you already own the original one, you got it for free. Yeah. Like it was just an update. Yeah, it was a whole new retail release of the enhanced edition that they put out. But if you already had it, boom, you get the whole thing. I mean, that had a rewritten script, all new voice acting, everything.
They put work into it.
Oh yeah, and then they did it again with Witcher 2. So another enhanced edition that was free for existing owners, and I mean, it sounds obvious, but not a lot of other publishers would do that today.
No, you're right.
EA would definitely sell that.
I don't think it sounds that obvious. I mean, that's really going above and beyond.
Yeah. So
by any measure.
So as long as they can keep on keeping on, I am totally fine with however long they want to take to make these things.
Yep. So it's time to move on. We're going to talk next about augmented reality. Something we have not talked about a ton on GameFace because it's kind of, for me personally, augmented reality is something I fiddle around with on my phone. I got an iPhone X months ago, and one of the first things I did was I went to the App Store and I found all the AR stuff, because that was kind of the thing with the X, is it has like these onboard chips that are supposed to make AR. And literally, I downloaded like all the highest rated AR stuff and fiddled with them for like literally each one for like 2 minutes, and was like, meh, why?
Well, my thing with that is, like, I'm more skeptical about AR than VR, in the sense that both things require you to put a thing on your face. Yeah. If you want to do like kind of a Google Glass, like like HoloLens thing. But AR seems to expect me to go outside with it.
It does, yeah.
And like,
that's a big part of it.
I think Google Glass showed that we're not ready for that as a society yet.
I think AR has a lot more opportunities for revenue generation.
Yeah.
Because it can be used in more consumeristic ways
than
VR can.
Well, yeah, because it's like an interface thing. And also, I feel like it has a future in teaching. Yeah. In like corporate settings, like a PowerPoint style thing. Like, I think in terms of like an interactive sort of like audience plus presenter thing. Like, there's a lot of like more practical applications there for it.
And you don't have to have a helmet, even though what we're seeing right now is Magic Leap.
Magic Leap is more like the pitch is kind of like VR but AR, like playing games, and it changes your room into a thing.
It's HoloLens that's actually coming out.
And might be affordable to a human being. Well, HoloLens is like the estimate.
HoloLens is not
like $3,000-$4,000, right? I mean, the problem
Magic Leap is designed to be a consumer product,
right, from the beginning,
right?
And they've been running, they've been showing demo videos and like hype videos for years,
and they've burned through like $1 billion.
Like in the investors.
There have been a lot of accusations of them frivolously wasting money, and that their office is like a frat house, and everyone's just playing ping pong instead of actually working on the product. But
little do they know, they're not playing with a real ping pong ball.
Right.
It's just all
Oddly enough, in a minute, you'll see their version of table tennis. But in the last week, Magic Leap has leapt out of the shadows, and it's coming. So this summer, within the next month or two, developers are going to get the first production quality Magic Leap headsets. They want to give developers the next 6-8 months to work on software, and then a launch to the public early, mid next year. They have released some of the specs. Magic Leap runs on a Tegra X2. For reference, the Switch runs on an X1 with some slight modifications, but for the most part, it's an X1. So this is more powerful than the Switch. But the other thing you need to keep in mind with augmented reality and Magic Leap is it doesn't need to be that powerful because you're not rendering the whole world. All you're rendering is the object that is overlaid over top of the real world. So essentially, the game quote-unquote level is just there because it's using the camera to pick it up, and then it overlays the polygonal stuff over top of whatever the camera is capturing. So it doesn't need to have a GTX 1080 to have great visuals. It should be able to get by with an X2 chip pretty well, in my opinion. So anyway, Magic Leap's leapt out of the shadows. They've had 2 huge streams where they've talked about it. This is where this footage is coming from, where they kind of showed the hardware for the first time. Then the next stream, they actually showed some software and some applications for it. My question to you, Matt, is there a market for this?
No.
Yeah.
Like, well, and the other thing is, like, if you looked at kind of reactions online, like this, and look, I admit I have not really been following the Magic Leap thing.
There's nothing to follow.
No.
It was just radio silence for like
also,
2 years.
I mean, there was hype like around the video, the proof of concept videos they released, like the audience watching while the whale jumped out of the stage and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But what we've seen in these videos is not that.
Yeah.
And you can see right here, like everything, that's rough. Like the frame rate, for lack of a better term, like it's very jumpy, very, very choppy. And like the other thing people I saw were complaining about is like the things that it's putting in the world, like through the chip, through the headset, are not opaque enough to look like they belong in the environment. And they even mention that.
You can see through them?
Yeah, and they even,
oh jeez.
Well, they even mentioned that in the video where they're like, yeah, it's better. We found it's better to lean into that, basically. And like, you're not trying to convince someone that everything's real or whatever. And like,
well, no, you are.
And they show like this thing, this little golem thing,
like
this golem thing throws like boulders at you. You have to block it with your hands or whatever. I don't have a lot of expectations or like.
It will pick up hand gestures without a glove, which is kind of a big deal.
I mean, you got to wonder how, so did the Kinect, technically. I mean, how well does that work in actual practice?
Well, I'm assuming this is a little better at least.
Yeah, I mean, I ain't going to buy one, so like, it just doesn't look, and the other thing is, of course, we don't know, I don't know because I haven't used it, but like, how much of this is like demo stuff and how much, what is the actual field of view? Yeah. Because that was a HoloLens realization. When you first put on the HoloLens, what you don't realize when you're seeing those demos is the actual field of view when you have it on your face is like maybe 30 degrees. Yeah. Like it's a tiny sliver of your vision is actually taken up by that. And the instant you look away, it becomes, you're talking about like a tiny little circle like that you can actually see the thing in, and as soon as you turn away, it's it's half gone. It's a very small amount because of how our eyes work. It's a physical limitation of how you project something into your eye like that. Like you have to be very straight on, and it's a kind of like right there in your middle of your focus. And maybe that will get better as eye tracking technology gets more incorporated into these things. That's also something VR is working on. But I don't know really many people who have tried like the AR headset things and not come away saying like, oh, you can't. It doesn't fill as much as your vision is, because you have an idea of like, you think it's going to be VR except you can see your room, right? And it's not that. It's not how it works. It's a tiny like slice of your vision cone.
Here's my big problem: they finally decide to show the thing, show the hardware, show the applications, and this is the best application they have to show.
Right.
Really? Really? You're going to ask me, I'm assuming, to spend at least $200 for this thing? And this is the demo that you showed me to sell me on it the first time?
Hey, at least their Gollum game will come out. Where are you, Sony?
No, you're right, though. That's a good point. That Gollum game, I don't think is ever coming out. So it's like you have one chance to make a first impression. And look, we've known about Magic Leap for a year and a half or 2 years. The average consumer hasn't known anything about Magic Leap. Maybe they browse past a story on their favorite news site and maybe caught a glimpse of it at some point. But
I'll be honest, when I saw the story first pop up this week, I'm like, magically, is that like one of those like kids drawing tablet thing? Like I thought it was like some kind of learning, like edutainment
see right there,
thing.
you can see through the rock.
Yep.
Exactly what you were saying. You could totally see it right there. You could see the transparent. The rock was like transparent. To me, that's a huge freaking no-no.
Yeah.
For AR.
Well, it's also not what they showed in their proof of concept.
Oh, no, not at all. And their proof of concept stuff looked pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, proof of concept stuff is always going to be a little optimistic.
Yeah.
You know that, but like this falls so far short of what they were. You know, it's. I mean, I know you got to get.
See how you can see through the rock there.
Yeah, I know you got to get investors and stuff, but if I were an investor in this, I'd be like, what the hell is going on?
The crazy part, though, is from what I've heard, some of there are some new people that want to get in on it. There's some more investors. I mean, this thing has been a money pit already.
Yeah, I mean, although I guess you might say that, like, in the world of like crazy tech venture capital, at least they have an actual object to show you.
I guess
that's already puts them ahead of half the competition.
No, you're right. But look, even the AR stuff that I messed around with on my iPhone 10, in a lot of ways, it was more engaging than what we're seeing here from Magic Leap. And it kept my attention for literally like 2 minutes. Think back to the 3DS. Remember, the 3DS does AR. Remember how when you got your 3DS, they gave you those 3 like little playing cards, and you could put them on the table, and then characters. Even Nintendo realized very, very quickly that, yeah, this is not going to be something that we're going to be able to sell. And notice that feature, you've never seen it again in the 3DS.
Nope.
That was it. Whatever you got in your launch unit, those cards, that was it for AR and 3DS.
Yeah, well, they had a couple of like those little like face blasters or whatever.
That all came out at launch.
Those all launched
where
stuff,
they take like a picture of your face, and then you were like, that was plastered on a spaceship or whatever. All that stuff happened at launch and never came back.
This also, I don't like. Just get 2 paddles and a ball.
Just play table tennis.
Like you've already, you're not saving any space. You're not saving any time. You're not saving any equipment. Like literally get 2 paddles and a ball and another person. Like,
I think they're just trying. I mean,
it's just a demo. I get it, but it's like nothing here is. It's like also like ping pong without the force feedback of maybe that paddle does that. I don't know.
Maybe.
But I feel like you're trying to solve a problem that's not there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely. So Magic Leap, if you're an investor or you're a potential investor, do you put money into this thing at this point?
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either. I mean, if you look around and look at all the VR HMDs that have come out over the last year and a half, they've all failed. All of them. All of them. Like all those like PC hardware manufacturers all decided to make their own VR HMDs. They've all tanked. They're all now at rock bottom prices. Nobody wants them. The Windows, what were they called? The Windows mixed media headsets.
Yeah.
There was like a tagline for them or whatever. Those are all failures. They're all gone or on sales racks somewhere right now. I don't know. What is going to be the thing that sets off VR or AR, though?
Well, I don't think AR is salvageable. I think
as a consumer product, sure. But as entertainment, I don't think so.
Yeah. Like it's... Well, in terms of what they're trying to sell here, is just, you know, obviously like Pokemon Go is an AR product, and that's done very well. Has it done very well because of the AR aspect? No. But like it doesn't hurt.
I don't know about that. I think if some people do like about Pokemon Go is that it does get them up and out. And
that's not
playing
AR. No. What I mean is like where you hold the thing up and it shows you the what you're looking at and the Pokemon appears on there. That's the AR feature. Now there's even an option to turn it off.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can. I have it turned off because I don't want to stick my phone in people's faces in line or whatever. So you turn it off and it just shows like a generic kind of Pokemon background, and you throw the ball.
I didn't even know that.
Oh yeah.
But I did think part of it was seeing the Pokemon in the real world.
Early on, I think.
And searching for them and finding them hidden in a statue or in some bush.
Yeah,
or
but
whatever.
the reason it became super popular is the social aspect and kind of the taking it into the real world, which isn't quite the same as the AR thing. Like, you know, it's but like having to go to the place is kind of the hook instead of seeing the Pokemon sitting on somebody's face. Or
right, but they're kind of linked though, because if you can't see that statue that you walked to get Pokeballs or whatever, if you can't really see it, do you walk to it still?
Huh?
to get the Pokeballs.
Well, you have to, or you don't get the Pokeballs.
Right, but I'm just saying, to me, I think the AR element of it is a bit of a motivator for people to get up and go out.
Well, that's not AR, though. I mean, AR is like taking, slapping the character on that real-life photo when you're holding
Right,
it.
I get that.
But
I
like,
think
the
if you're
Pokestops
not
don't work
using
that way.
the real life, well, it's just hunting Pokemon or whatever. Just the AR in general, I think it is an incentive for some people who play the game. I think if say, okay, there's a Pokestop out here on the corner, and we need to still walk out there to get it. But if you walk out there and you can't see the mailbox or whatever that's hidden in, to me that's less incentive. Like, I'm not going to just walk a block as it shows me a Pokemon world on my phone.
But I mean, that's what it is.
But it's not. It's showing the real world normally.
It's showing the map of the real world, but that's not AR. There's a little Pokestop thing with a photo of, like the Starbucks or whatever. That's not AR. That's just a photo of a Starbucks.
You're not understanding what I'm trying to say.
I
totally understand what AR is. I think you should give me that. I know what it is.
But I'm saying like the AR elements of Pokemon Go is not what made it a giant hit. Otherwise, you'd see Nintendo trying to double down on the AR thing more often.
But what made it a hit then? Because otherwise people would just sit at home and play Pokemon.
That's not what AR is, though. Like the social aspect and going out there, having to go to the actual locations, that's not AR. That's the premise of the game, but it's not
My
the
point
AR
is
part.
that I think AR is what's convincing the people to go. I think if you just told someone, hey, here's the Pokemon game for Switch. If you need Pokeballs, you're going to have to go down to Staples Center to get them. I just think people would just not go.
But that's literally what Pokemon Go is.
Right, but I think people care more because it does incorporate that real-world element with its augmented reality.
But that's not the augmented reality. The only AR aspect of Pokemon Go is when you see a Pokemon and you hold the thing up and it sits there and you throw the ball at it.
No, it's anytime it's superimposing the video game graphics over the real world. That's augmented reality.
Yeah, it never does that except when you catch a Pokemon. Like the Pokestops are just sitting there on the map, and you walk up close to one, and it says you're in range, and you hit the thing and spin the thing, and you get the Pokeballs. Like, that's not AR.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a map of the real world, though, that you're following. It's like a treasure hunt in the real world.
Right, but what I'm saying is that's not AR. That's just geocaching, basically.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, if
the AR aspect of Pokemon Go is when you find a Pokemon, and you have to hold it up and find a little grass thing animates, and you have to tap it to find it, and then it pops up, and you throw the... That's AR.
Yeah.
And like that's not why I think people freaked out about this game.
But if
they
you
freaked
go to
out
like
because
a
you get to go
Pokestop,
out and
But if you go to like a Pokestop to get Pokeballs, like for instance, there's a statue a couple blocks from where I live.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you walk up to the statue, you hold up your phone and you see the real statue, and then you can tap it, and then the balls start like flying out of it.
Yeah, but that's not AR.
It is though, because the Pokeballs are the game-generated graphics, and I'm seeing the actual statue through my phone.
That's not how it works when I do it.
Maybe they've changed it since it launched. I honestly haven't played Pokemon Go since like the first month it came out.
I don't think it's different. I mean, it's different in that you save a photo of the Pokestops you go to, and you can send those to your friends as like gifts. It's like a postcard, and it comes with like random items, I think. But it's like it shows you a little Pokestop on the map, and you go to it, and when you get there, it has like kind of the radius around your character, and the Pokestop changes form, and you hit the button, and it shows you the picture of wherever it is, and you spin the thing, and you get the things. So there's no real world picture. Outside of kind of the placeholder photo of what the place is, like the Starbucks sign or whatever.
Where do they get those photos from?
Usually it's user provided.
Oh, really?
And I think they've done a revamp, but early on, a whole bunch of them were from
Google Maps or
No,
something?
it was from their previous game.
Oh, Ingress.
Ingress. It was from Ingress. I mean, a lot of the
They had a
Pokestops were
database,
identical.
all that stuff.
Like
I didn't
early
know.
on, I think a lot of that has been tweaked and shifted in the years since then. But when it first launched, it was basically a Pokemon skin laid over the Ingress. Ingress, is that right?
Ingress, yeah.
Over the Ingress map. The stops were the same. The battle locations were turned into Pokemon Coliseums or whatever they are, whatever they call them in the Pokemon game. And so I think that's been shifted a lot, and people, various businesses have requested we want to be a Pokestop, so that's changed. But early on, yeah, it was just, and a lot of the assets were reused.
So what have we figured out? I think we figured out that if you want to make AR popular, you have to have a big IP attached to it.
It helps, or at the very least,
or maybe it seems like you have no chance unless
I don't
it has
think
a big
AR
IP.
is why Pokemon. I think the only thing you can say about the AR in Pokemon Go is it didn't hurt.
Yeah.
Like it helped, but it didn't sell it. It wasn't.
But see, I went to Dodger Stadium to a Dodgers game, for instance, and pulled out my phone and started playing Pokemon Go, and I looked down, and there was a Squirtle on the baseball field that's like 50 feet tall. That's cool. Like, I was like, wow. And like literally you see the little players like standing next to him, and then there's this gigantic Pokemon. Like, I think there's some power leverage in the AR of the game.
I think it's like fun that one time, and then like also you did not pay $200 to $300 for the device you did.
No,
that
you're right.
With. You
You're
already
absolutely
owned
right.
it.
No,
you know?
yeah, for sure.
Like it's a nice bonusy thing, and I just don't think it's something you can sell devices on the back of.
We also, you're talking about Magic Leap. It has really no major development studios to create exclusive content for it. Can you see a major publisher developing like big games for that? No way.
Like if you're big enough to develop games, like that would be something that could be a breakout idea for that kind of technology. You're also big enough to make your own.
Yeah.
Or incorporate it into something you're already working on.
Or smart enough to know you should make
smart
it
enough
in
to
the
not
first
mess with it.
place.
Yeah. I don't think VR is a slam dunk either, but I think VR, the other thing about VR is when you experience VR, it's a lot closer to what you thought it was going to be than what AR tends to be.
Yeah.
At least in terms of strapping the glasses to your face sort of thing.
I'm just wondering if they're being smart by trying to market this to us.
I don't know.
It seems to me like they should, and look, Google Glass wasn't a big hit either.
We should probably be asking like 22-year-olds.
No, you're right.
More, I was having this argument with one of my friends who doesn't believe VR is ever going to be anything. He's just like never going to. Maybe it'll be like an arcade experience where you like the thing at Glendale Galleria right now, where you go play that Star Wars thing, where the whole set you're on is literally recreated in real life. And like when you're in the VR, like if you see a railing, you can reach out in the game and you touch the railing because it's an exact duplicate of what's in the game. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, but like, and I'm like, well, eventually, like 15 to 20 years from now, I think VR will be a primary method of consuming entertainment. I think,
probably,
and he was adamant like that was not going to happen. And I'm like, he's like, I'm like, you sound like someone who says that arcade games can never come to home consoles because no one will want to play them if you can't sit on the super hang-on bike.
Right.
No one gives a shit.
Yeah.
Like if you can replicate that at home, and people don't have to leave home to do it, they'll love it. And he was complaining about like, well, I don't want to wear a thing on my face. 3D movies didn't take off because you had to wear glasses. I'm like, yeah, but VR is an amazing experience. 3D doesn't really enhance anything. It's two different. You can't. It's apples and oranges. Also, your daughter in 15 years is going to hear you say things like this and react the way we reacted to our parents not understanding how a mouse works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's the next generation. If they attach to it, if they see that as a normal and thing, a way they like to experience it, it's totally going to become a mainstream thing 15 to 20 years from now when these headsets are smaller, when they last longer, when they're wireless, when they maybe don't need you to drill holes in the wall to tell where they are in space, that kind of thing. And eventually,
I'm seeing it already a little bit with like Snapchat. Like, I don't get Snapchat. I have no idea why people want to use it. I have no idea why they want to watch what other people are doing with it.
Part of the
I know what's successful on it. I know what kind of content you need to put on it so that it resonates with people, but I have no idea why they care.
Part of the appeal is the temporality of it.
Right. It's up and then it's gone for good.
Because think about,
even though it's not really.
Right, it's not. But like the concept is that's why it's appealing. Because think about it. Think about if you're that age, if you're that generation. One of the things you have grown up knowing is almost anything you do online is always there forever.
Yeah.
It's something we didn't have to worry about because the stupid shit we did when we were 15
no one recorded it.
Was not on YouTube. Like no one knows it happened but us.
Yeah.
And we only have to share that if we the only reason you'd ever know some of the stupid stuff I did when I was a kid is if I tell you or you look up some really obscure police records. And like you don't have that as a kid today, so the idea of this like a little service
I can be anonymous.
You can just send things to all your friends and say things, and then your dad can't look it up with on your phone like 20 minutes later. That's awesome.
You can't go on the internet.
Which is why I don't use Snapchat because I don't have to worry about that. I don't need Snapchat really because
I don't really do anything I need to forget
I don't have
about.
to. And also like nobody else can look at my phone and see the stupid things I was texting to somebody.
Yeah, but I think that's an example of something that the kids really get that I don't get already. So
no, I think Snapchat,
you're absolutely right. It's headed that way.
Snapchat, I think, was the first like big popular thing that I said I don't need that.
Yeah.
Like it's
the other stuff, kids, I'm good with, but this one, not
but
for me.
I think VR will get there, and like I said, your daughter will He's like, oh, I can't eat popcorn or drink a drink while I'm in VR. It's stupid. I'm like, you're gonna say that to your daughter, and she's gonna be like, Dad, you just use the voice print scanner to input your VXR cup into the virtual space, and then you can drink it with your, with your InfraTouch glove.
Right. By then we'll be like drinking meals anyway. So.
Like, duh.
Or it'll just be like an IV fed into your arm.
And you don't, and she, kids her age don't say like duh, but she used slang from our generation to make him feel more comfortable.
That's hilarious.
And then she touched the little implant on her cheek to change her eye color and dove out the window and had her drone catch her in midair before she went to the dance.
That's great. So HoloLens
and he was
never coming out. We know that at this point, right?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like they ever have a plan for a consumer.
We're never going to be able to buy it. We probably don't want to buy it.
Or if they do, it'll be so far down the road that like what we've already seen won't even matter.
Notice the guy who heads up that division wasn't even at E3.
Yeah. Yeah.
The guy who's the Avatar guy whose shoe.
Yeah. Want to see the bottom of the Avatar's shoe looks like? Oh, I can't remember.
Ono or something like that? Kono.
Kuno, yeah.
Anyway, you know who we're talking about, but he wasn't at E3.
No.
So yeah, HoloLens.
I know. I've only met
Dust
him
in the wind.
I only met him once when we did the Kinect Star Wars segment.
Yeah.
And I was distracted by the dancing Boba Fett too much to really pay attention.
But I think HoloLens never happening. Magically, probably going to be a big flop. It's like I can get better AR on my phone than what they're showing in their first like big promo video that's supposed to go out to everybody.
Yeah, I think the big issue is like once you strap it to your face, you have the field of vision issue.
Changes everything.
Which basically, as far as I know, they don't have an actual solution for. It's like it might be an actual limitation of the human eye that you can't get around, which is really going to make it an issue. Because imagine if you're looking at this Gollum thing, like you're thinking about like the field of view, like you're probably not seeing all of that rock as it flies close to you.
Yeah.
Like it's too big. Like you're probably only able to see like what the space the Golem is in, and like maybe a little bit past it. And like if you look even a little bit to the left or right, his arms will disappear.
Right.
At least that's how the HoloLens was. Like that Minecraft thing where it looks like it's like you have the whole Minecraft roll on the table. Yeah. No, you can see a sliver of that.
You're not seeing
the whole thing at once. It's there if you look at it, but it's not like it's not like the way they present it. I find
the way they capture this stuff tricks you. It's a little tricky.
Yeah, I find it disingenuous because it looks like you're standing in front of the holographic map display at the Batcave or something.
Right.
It does not look like that.
Yeah.
And I would hate that, especially in terms of like a consumer device like this, like. If someone sees something like that, expects it to be that, and then they buy it, and it's like you've got this little 33-degree radius like vision cone, and like, this is not what I was sold.
Even the Vita did AR. Remember there was like that AR fighting game where it was like fight on your coffee table or whatever.
Yeah. What I think
it didn't last on Vita.
What I think is a lot more likely is VR headsets begin to have AR capabilities built into them. I mean, the Vive already has a camera on the front of it. Like there's no reason you couldn't do stuff like that as well. Once the screen resolutions in the headsets become high enough that they're hard to distinguish from just seeing stuff without the headset on, you could do AR style stuff in a VR headset and not really lose any kind of gimmickry from it. It would still be pretty much the same experience. And it will also be kind of fun to have to walk around with a VR headset, but seeing the actual room you're in. Or like walk down the street with a VR headset, and you can still see everything, but like you're just seeing it through the VR headset. And it's just like, whoa, like you look like an idiot, but like
who cares?
I mean, but that's the thing is like people forget. It's like there's always a time you go back far enough, wearing sunglasses would make you look like an idiot.
No,
like
you're
someone
right.
from the early 1900s, or like wearing shorts or like there's plenty of things that we do that we take for granted today. That people would never remember. I mean, 10 years ago, we didn't have smartphones.
Become normative behavior,
20 years ago, the idea is like, oh, everybody's got these little squares and they look at them all the time, and nobody really looks at each other anymore. But it's got everything you could ever want to see. I mean, you watch movies on these tiny little screens, and I'm sure there'd be people like 1991 going like, why would you ever want to watch a movie on a tiny screen? It's things change. Like what doesn't make sense today, all you need is that little click of the kaleidoscope, a quarter click. That that technological innovation or that content that everybody wants that suddenly makes it the most desirable thing in the world.
Yep,
and somewhere out there's somebody that knows, even if they don't know it yet, somewhere out there someone has the thing that's going to make VR that in their head or AR that in their head. Like we'll see.
We'll see. All right, let's move on.
It's probably not going to be Magic Leap though.
Definitely, I think it's definitely not going to be Magic Leap. I was excited for that at first. When I saw like the first like promo videos for it, not anymore. Now that they've actually shown the product. So let's move on. We're going to talk about a story that literally made my eyeballs almost pop out of my head this week, Matt. And that was that Nintendo hopes to have 30 indie games. And this is what made my eyes pop. I thought it said per month. No. 30 indie games per week on Switch. And so my question to you is, at what point is too much of anything a bad thing?
Well, that's a point, because when I read that, I was like, hey, you know that thing where like indie games come out on our system and our library is kind of like, sparse enough that like they can sit there and get exposure and be part of like the front page for a long time, and they sell tremendous amounts in the first couple of weeks, and like they'll, the indie developers report that like they've had better sales in the first like 2 weeks on the Switch than they did in the first 2 months on PC. Let's find a way to stop that.
Yeah.
Because that just sounds to me like you're just going to lose all these games in this blizzard of indie games, and you're not going to have, it's going to be very hard to kind of pick out the special ones after that.
No, you're right.
You know what I mean? Like it feels like you're...
Look, we've talked a ton
I realize they need to fill their schedule, but that's too much. Like, you're not going to be able to keep it the cream of the crop. Because right now, as little interest as I have in all the indie game ports on the Switch, because I've owned most of them for 3 to 4 years on other platforms, at least you can look at that store and say, you know what? This is kind of a greatest hits of the last 5 years of indie games.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's very hard to go wrong.
If you've been a Nintendo-only player for a while, you haven't had access to a lot of these games.
Right.
A lot of them never came to Wii U, certainly never came to the Wii.
Right, and it's chances are you can just throw a dart at the eShop. Do not actually throw a dart at your Switch.
At the eShop.
You can just, you know what I mean? Like, your chances are you're going to pick something worth playing, because they've got a very high quality library of indie game ports right now.
Yeah,
but
I'm not sure if it's
need
Nintendo that's curated what's coming, or if it's just that the developers are like, hey, this game sold well for us before. Let's take the effort to develop it again for a Switch.
But my point is that if you suddenly come up with this like mandate that you need 30 of these a week, all 30 of them are not going to be winners every week.
It's going to turn into Steam.
Yeah.
Where literally, it's so funny. Like we do.
I mean, you're probably not going to have asset flips and stuff like that, but you're not going to be able to. It's not. I mean, look, I can criticize Nintendo for plenty of things, but you're not going to be able to keep the quality level that one would expect from a Nintendo product.
I don't even know if it's the quality. You're right. Quality will be part of it, but I just think that there's going to be so many choices that no one's going to be able to choose. It's like the way things are going right now. First of all, one thing I should say is, as someone who works on a site that's a database, a lot of games are starting to be announced right now, indie games, for PC and Switch first. Mm-hmm. It's not just like a game here or there. It's like every week there's at least 2 indie games that are announced, coming to PC and Switch first, or in some cases, Switch first.
Yeah, you got to follow the money.
Debuting on Switch and then coming to PC after that, and then the other guys after that. But right now, you have everything's kind of perfect, because you have the big stuff that comes in probably once a month, once every 2 months for the Switch from first party or third party. And you do need to fill those gaps in between. Right now, there's just the perfect amount of stuff going into the eShop for people to check out. But you don't want it to turn into Steam, because the biggest problem with Steam is it's just too much. Everything just gets lost in the weeds. We do Dossier, which is the games of the month for every month. And the consoles are pretty easy. Each console generally has 10 to 20 games that are coming out in a given month. You look at PC, oh my God. Literally, like 400 games a month coming out on PC. And a lot of them are just garbage, like gambling simulator or whatever, just, fan projects or whatever. But they get the same real estate, the same placement as any other game in Steam's database. And so you're going to Nintendo will start running into the same issue Steam has, which is, how do you curate? How do you bubble the good stuff up to the top? How do you make sure that the games that people care about, they're seeing them so they can spend money on them? And I feel like Nintendo has such a good thing going right now that it's just, I think it runs the risk of screwing up the good thing, because it's trying to say we want more of the good thing, instead of realizing right now you're kind of in that sweet spot where you're putting out just enough indie stuff so that people have money to buy the indie games, and they're also not overwhelmed with the selection so much that they're just like, you know what, screw it, I'm not buying anything. Like, it's always easy to say, hey, things are going great. How can we make them go better? Well, sometimes things are going about as good as they can, and I feel like that's what's happening with the Switch right now. And look, if Nintendo does follow this plan, and it starts having 30 games a week released for its platform, these developers are suddenly going to change their mind and be like, you know what? Why would we put out our game first on Switch? Because it's just going to get swallowed up by all the other games, and they're going to start turning to PlayStation and Xbox. Now, look, Nintendo does have a lot of catching up to do. Most of these games have already come out for PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, and all of them have come out for PC already or mobile. So Nintendo does have a lot of games, or there are a lot of indie games that are good that have still never appeared on a Nintendo platform. So I get it right now. But you start talking about 6 months from now, a year from now, to me, it's like it's a self-defeating idea to have that many games on your platform in such a short period of time.
Yeah, I think so too. And at the very least, if this is their plan that they're sticking to, there better be one hell of a revamp coming to that eShop in September. Because there needs to be a better way to find these things. There needs to be a better way to sort them. There needs to be a better way to recommend them to a player based on what they've already played.
Yeah.
There needs to be a way for...
I mean, the eShop on the Switch is so basic.
Yes.
And it's working okay now because there isn't a lot of content coming
yeah.
into it. But that's about to change, obviously.
It's on the right balance because, look, I started up the Switch to get Octopath Traveler.
We'll be talking about that next week.
And I probably hadn't turned it on in forever. And I went to the store, and I went to see what was there, and I'm like, oh, this is out. I didn't know that was out. I didn't know that was. And then like maybe a page and a half down, I got to the stuff that was already there the last time I looked.
Yeah.
Which felt like, the right amount.
That's about right.
It's a couple months maybe, but it was like, yeah, it's a healthy amount of stuff. I didn't know. It's just like it's like looking at the eShop on the 3DS. I look at the eShop on the 3DS periodically, and I'm like, there's like 14 games here I didn't know existed that are out on digitally only on the 3DS. I'm like, that looks pretty interesting. I wish I'd known about that earlier. It happens a lot. They're not very good at pushing that content to you, unless it's Nintendo made. I mean, I turned it on last night, and they already were trying to automatically download the demo for Captain Toad Treasure Tracker.
Right.
But if you're not a Nintendo published game, you're just gonna get buried.
Now imagine if you're an indie developer and you did the same thing that you did. Hadn't turned on your Switch for a month or two, turn it on, go to the eShop, and you scroll down, and it takes you a little bit, but eventually you get to where you were the last time. That would encourage you to put a game out on Switch, because you're like, look, I can put it out. It's going to have a shelf life in the eShop of at least a month. That's pretty good. But now all of a sudden, when you're putting out 30 games a week... Now there's
240 games between you and the last time you looked.
More isn't always better, I guess, is what I would say about this. And I think Nintendo...
And anyone who likes Nintendo systems should know that.
Right. It might be a little bit of an overcorrection on Nintendo's part, where it's heard for so long, you don't have enough games. You don't have enough games. And now it's like, well, you can't say that anymore. I really wonder, though, if that might be part of the strategy behind it, because even with the Switch, it's already starting to get to that, like, there aren't any games for it, or you have to wait 2 months or 3 months in between games. It's starting to look a whole lot like prior Nintendo consoles, and so I feel like maybe this is Nintendo trying to correct that, but ultimately going too far in the other direction.
Although, to be fair, with Octopath Traveler coming out, it's probably the only interesting thing being released in July to me.
No, you're right.
So
tough month.
Nintendo doesn't have any games, yada, yada, yada. Well, they got the only game I'm interested in this month, so I don't know. But yeah, I think it's too many. I think you wander into the shovelware territory at that point, because you're just going to try to feed.
Oh, there's already shovelware coming to Switch.
You're just going to try to feed. You're trying to feed the beast at that point. You don't
There's all kinds
anymore.
of iOS and Android games that have never been released for any console, but they're coming to Switch.
Many of which have never been charged for.
No, you're right. No, you're right. There's a lot of free-to-play games that are coming to Switch, and they'll charge you 10 or 15 bucks for them. Yeah, so keep an eye on that. We try to, whenever we do the blurbs on Sifted, we try to mention stuff like that to help you guys out, so you don't have to actually go and watch or do research on the game. And we try to tell you as much as we can in that 2 or 3 sentences to keep you informed, but there's only so much we can do.
In the end, I'm just going to end up playing Golf Story again.
Yeah, which not a bad thing at all.
But it's like, imagine how hard it would be to find a Golf Story in a blizzard of 30 to 60 games every couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
Would
you even give it a chance?
I don't know.
You probably wouldn't. Because if there's 240 other games, what makes Golf Story stand out? Because also the other problem with the eShop is it doesn't really have like user ratings that you can sort by yet.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that maybe Nintendo will make some changes as more games come online. But
yeah, I'm hoping that September's update is going to really revamp a bunch of this stuff because it needs it.
It needs more than a revamp.
I mean, I never thought I'd say it, but it's like even the lack of the Miiverse feature is kind of just a problem now because it just doesn't feel like there's any kind of feedback from the community that you can, I mean, I'm not saying I make my Steam buying decisions just purely through the reviews, but it's like at least it's nice to read something.
Yeah.
I mean, even just that weirdo on the Wii U who used to put up reviews about how the water looked on every game.
Right,
I mean,
right.
That's at least it's something.
Some value,
I remember it.
Yeah.
Like it's a thing that was part of the Wii U community or like culture that I remember. Like that's a real thing. The Switch could use some of that.
What about Nintendo incentivizing indie developers to either create exclusive games for Switch or at least give Nintendo some exclusivity period? The game I've been playing the last few days is a game called Garage. And I don't know if you remember it or not. Actually, Sam, there should be some B-roll there of Garage for you to bring up. But it's a... it should be there. It's a top-down survival horror game. It looks kind of like Hotline Miami. It's a few clips down, Sam. It should be there. But it was a Switch exclusive for a while. And it had like a month of exclusivity, I think, before it, and it just came out for PC, and I've been playing it on PC and not on Switch. And it's really not that remarkable of a game. And so I wonder what sort of advantage that really gives a platform holder. I mean, I can probably count on two hands the indie games that to me were needle movers. There just haven't been that many.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, even if you're to say, okay, well, if Nintendo takes the other approach and says, let's follow our usual mantra, which is quality over quantity, does that even work in the indie space? I
think it does to some degree, but I mean, the more they can incentivize people to want their platform ahead of, for things you can't get elsewhere, even if it's for a temporary amount of time, the better. I think that's a good strategy right now because they clearly don't have the internal output capacity right now. But the other thing about it is like you never know what the next hit indie game is going to be. Like
it's hard.
Like you kind of you're taking shots in the dark a lot. You never know. I mean, if you'd looked at just the preliminary screens or whatever of Night in the Woods, would you have been able to tell that was going to be your favorite indie game of that year?
Yeah.
No. Would you have known that PUBG was going to revolutionize the industry? No.
Definitely not.
So like
not from screenshots.
You're rolling the dice when you're doing that, but like I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. Like it's, especially if you're keeping your expectations and your budgets reasonable. So yeah, is this Garage is going to set the world on fire? No.
I'm assuming Nintendo kicked the developer some sort of cash.
Yeah, probably. I mean, but it's like, why not? Like, it's something that you can't get elsewhere. Like, that's also sort of like one of the big appeals to people who love the Switch. Like, they talk about that all the time. They want to play things that they can't play elsewhere. And you got the two kinds of Switch owners. You got the people that want to play everything that they think that Call of Duty, Black Ops 4 is coming to the Switch magically at some point, which is obviously not true. But then you've got people that just like want to play cool new experiences, and if it's only on the Switch, all the better. I don't really see a downside to Nintendo getting more involved with indie games and more involved with kind of like making them a more unique or a more special or more exclusive experience on the Switch. I think that's a smart direction to go in right now.
What, to get more exclusive indies?
Yeah, more exclusive indies or even just a time release thing. Like, the more you can do of that,
because that is a way to offset the crowding problem, right? Because if you incentivize the developer to make the game for Switch, then maybe they don't care so much about their game getting swallowed up by a sea of other games.
Well, you just got to make sure that if a game is part of that initiative, that you are properly promoting it and giving it the space it deserves, which I feel like they've had a problem making that happen on the 3DS eShop.
Yeah.
And so they need to really reevaluate how they go about that on the Switch. And I mean, hopefully also, I mean, the eShop is continuous between the two platforms, so hopefully it would benefit the 3DS as well.
Absolutely, yeah, it should.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. Like, I mean, if you can make the Switch a destination platform for indie stuff, why not do it? It's one of its strengths.
Yeah.
Like, and it's also, for the most part, these kinds of graphics and this kind of, what we see out of indie games is very functional on both a large monitor and on a small screen. So it makes it fits with the portability aspect. Like, there's no reason not to.
So we're saying 30 a week, way too much. What do you think is the right number there, Matt?
I would go more for 5-ish.
Yeah. Even that maybe.
Even that's a lot.
That's still like 20 indie games a month. That seems okay. That seems like that's a good number of games to be able to parse them.
And there's enough right now. I mean, it's not like there's shortages of indie games right now.
I mean, that's the thing. Nintendo's been so far behind in this regard for so long. There's just, I mean, there are indie games from like 2013 that are being re-released on the Switch. It is like the indie gold rush on the Switch right now. You can just see it. Like, as somebody who has to create games as they're announced every day, you see it. I can see the tide turning where a lot of games are just being announced for Switch that have been literally out for like 6-7 years. But also, every new indie game that's announced has Switch, and now a lot of them are like Switch first or just PC and Switch, and then PS4 and Xbox One after. So whatever Nintendo's doing to get more content on its platform is absolutely working, and I commend it for that. But there is a certain point where the law of diminishing returns starts to kick in.
There's a point at which this strategy, if they carry it to its illogical extreme, could end up shooting themselves in the foot and kind of ruining one of the good things they've sort of stumbled into with the system.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on. Got a lot to show to get to still. We're going to talk about one of the few big-ish games that has come out this month. Red Faction Remastered. Remastered version of the...
It sounds like they just made the game and revoiced the main character with James Marsters, but it's not what happened. I was disappointed.
Yeah, it's not a crossover of Red Dead and Red Faction, although, wow,
that'd be Remastered edition.
Right, yeah. So Matt, have you been a fan of Red Faction in the past?
No.
Me either. The first Red Faction. I liked this one. Yeah, you liked it?
I liked it okay. I didn't think it was that great.
The first Red Faction I used as like a toy.
Right.
Because then they called it Geomod. Do they still call it that in this one?
No.
You don't see it anywhere in the game?
I don't think so. They just call it destroying stuff.
Yeah. They called their engine like the Geomod engine because you could blow everything up.
Yeah, and you just drill your way to nowhere. Basically.
Literally what I would do in the game was I would just get a rocket launcher and I would just start shooting into the environment until I dug a hole all the way through the world until I just hit this black abyss at the edge of whatever the developer.
Yeah, that doesn't work anymore in this one.
Yeah, this is more of a game than like a toy.
Yeah, the hook on this one is that the building destruction is extremely detailed. Like, it's still probably one of the best building destruction physics games ever. Like you got to take the supports out of things. You have a giant futuristic sledgehammer. Because you're sort of a cross between like a miner and a fireman, like a little bit, and like you just go up and smash stuff, and eventually you smash enough of it that it collapses. And if it collapses on you, it might kill you, but usually that doesn't happen. But that's the fun of it. Is like just you also got like you've got like little like sticky mines you can put on things, and so you can like plant a bunch of those and then set them off, and then like kind of finish off the building with your sledgehammer or whatever. One of the problems the old game had, and the remaster still has, is it's very hard. Like the developers actually admit that the difficulty's too high, and they recommend playing it on casual difficulty, because it's kind of from that same philosophy from that era and a little before it, where like it's an open world game. If you do a thing that causes an alert to happen, we're going to do the PS2 GTA thing and just send cops at you forever, you know? And so there's a lot of times in this where you just want to destroy this building in moderate peace, and 4,000 EDF soldiers are just like firing at you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
So that is still kind of an issue in it, but when you put on casual, it's not really a problem. Like they do so little damage that you can just sort of ignore them and smack things. And you can see there, like, the collapses are very satisfying. They're realistic.
Like it lost all its supports and the building collapsed.
I will say that they fall too fast because Mars doesn't have as strong gravity as Earth.
I never would have even thought of that. You're right.
But the Mars setting is fun because Red Faction, the whole point is it's Mars.
Right.
Red means Mars. Yeah. It's usually it's traditionally about the Red Faction is usually like a rebel faction that is trying to throw off the yoke of oppression from the Earth Empire, the Earth Defense Force, or whatever. Also worth noting, I had forgotten because this is Volition, and
may it rest in peace.
Yes, and Ultor is one of the bad guy companies in this, which is the bad guy company from Saints Row.
Right.
Like I forgot that they had like a whole
starting to
universe.
Like tie it all in, yeah.
Volition interactive cinematic universe. Whatever that's worth. So you can see like the destruction's a lot of fun. The problem I have with this game, and I had it back then and I still have it now, is it has a weird, it looks really cool.
Yeah.
It has a weird stop and go quality to it as you do missions, and it sort of like stops and you kind of have to go back to a thing and do it again and start a new thing and drive over here. I feel like the flow of the gameplay is very stop and go, and too often my instinct after it stops is to also stop.
Yeah.
Because I just don't feel like, it just feels like kind of a chore to get back out there and do stuff. And the other problem I run into is, yes, it takes place on Mars, and Mars is kind of the hook for kind of the sci-fi element of it.
Mars
is really boring. Like, it's just brown and red, and it's just like you're just driving these, and they're all kind of like industrial sort of vehicles mostly, and so you're just driving these hard to control trucky looking things like across like barren wastelands, and people keep radioing you for help to go do like these like random missions, which always come here and help us kill 4 people, and we'll give you like 25 scrap, which you could have gotten by running over a fence in your car for 5 seconds. And it's just like there's not a lot of...
Why are there so many entertainment products set in Mars? Mars is the most boring, dull place, literally, in the galaxy.
There's not... Well, we don't know that yet. I'll put you on EO, and you'll think that's pretty boring, too. But that's the other thing. Is like there's not tons of stuff on Mars because one of the... Especially in film, because it's one of the superstitions of film is if you set your movie on Mars, it's going to bomb.
Oh, really?
Movies with Mars, related to Mars, don't do well.
The Martian did pretty well, right?
Martian did okay. Total Recall was a hit, but Mars Needs Moms was one of Disney's biggest bombs of all time.
Mars Attacks.
Mars Attacks was not a tremendous success. Mission to Mars did not do well.
It did bad.
Ghosts of Mars was a bomb.
Maybe people are smarter than we give them credit for.
John Carter was a huge bomb, and it didn't even have Mars in the title.
Yeah.
Mars is the kiss of death in film. I can't think of a lot of other Mars settings in games, though.
Doom is on Mars, isn't it?
Yeah, Doom starts on Mars, depending on the continuity. Yeah, but then like, notice it with the upcoming Doom how fast they got it off Mars.
They're like, hey, we're here because we have to be, but not for long.
So I think the main thing about Red Faction is like this game is it's fun early on, and like you see the physics destruction, and it's cool to like whack things with your hammer and blow stuff up with your remote mines. And sometimes the firefights are okay, but mostly they're sort of annoying. And that the appeal of the game lasts exactly as long as you think it's cool to watch that building fall over.
Yeah.
And for me, that lasts
about 3 hours.
That lasts through about liberating 2 of the 5 territories.
Right.
It's how far I got in the first time, the original release, and it's how far I got on this release.
Yeah.
And if you, I have it for free through Steam because if you already owned the original,
that's pretty cool.
They gave you the remastered one for free.
Yep.
So no skin off mine.
Yeah.
But
how much is it selling for though?
I think it's 30.
Okay.
30 or 40.
I would probably not pay $30 for it.
Yeah, 30 is a little steep. But I guarantee you'll be able to pick it up cheap later this year. And it's all the other thing is like, it doesn't look that much better than the original game.
Yeah.
Like they up the assets. It's clearly the HDR is a little bit. Maybe I don't know. But like I saw like videos on Sifted of like, comparing the original to the remastered in high performance and high resolution modes, and I honestly had a lot of trouble
like
figuring out which one
was
because it's all red and brown.
It is,
it's not a
red, brown, and gray.
It's not a visually amazing game. But if you think knocking stuff over and watching it crumble like that is like really cool, like this is the game for you. Just do not expect it to have an engaging story or an interesting world or
interesting objectives.
Yeah, it's just the all 100%.
Or fun guns.
100% of the appeal is knocking stuff over.
Yeah.
So
destruction.
If you go in forewarned on that, you're fine. But just know that that's the only thing to recommend this game is how cool all the destruction and collapsing stuff is. Everything else is like real by the numbers. To the point that I'm kind of shocked they remastered this.
Yeah.
But like THQ Nordic just seems to be like, we're
What
gonna
else
dig,
does it have
we're
to
gonna dig
do?
into the back catalog until our current projects are done,
Yeah.
until like Darksiders 3 comes out, which is November. Where the hell did that come from?
Yeah.
I did not think Darksiders
Me
3 was
either.
coming out this year.
I think that's probably a mistake. But
Hey,
hey.
it's not even making it before Black Friday.
Yeah, I know.
It's gonna come right out before Smash Brothers.
Big mistake.
Gonna get buried.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Yeah, this was kind of a nice surprise that then sort of like wore out its welcome after about 4 hours.
Yeah, it's a good thing you got it for free then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would not recommend people pay $30 for this.
No,
In
not
fact,
unless
I'd
you're
probably just say if you have a 360 or a PS3 lying around, go and buy it for $1 on eBay and play it on that instead.
Yeah, you could do worse than to do that.
Yeah, because as you said, the upgrades are not significant.
Yeah, it didn't. I mean, it's nice to have it running at 60 frames a second, but like, okay, you know, it's not like amazing. It's not like, oh my God, my eyes are open to the glory of this game. Fun. It's like, no, it's pretty much the same game I played before.
Yeah.
If you were a giant fan of it, yeah, you probably already have it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about, so earlier we talked about AR, which is something we never talk about on GameFace. And now we're going to talk about something else that we hardly ever talk about on GameFace, and that is eSports. And the only reason we're talking about it, other than the fact this is the driest period for games like ever, is that this week, the biggest deal ever for eSports was signed for broadcasting. So Blizzard has signed a huge deal with essentially Disney.
Yeah.
It's ABC and ESPN are going to show Overwatch League matches live on air. People may say, what's the big deal? Because they'll say, oh, ESPN has broadcast esports before.
Right. Well, also, I believe the semifinals are right now, and they're on Disney XD.
The timing's a little...
So they're, Disney is getting in on this.
And so people may say, well, what's the big deal? ESPN has had esports before. And the truth be told, ESPN ran Blizzard Esports. It had that Heroes of the Dorm. Remember that for Heroes of the Storm? Where it had college teams playing each other? But that was all pay to play. That was Blizzard paying ESPN to put it on air, a lot like what you'd see with like the Madden Bowl on NFL Network. I mean, that's the dirty secret here, folks, is that most of these TV networks up until now, they were taking no risk showing esports. I think maybe TBS or TNT. Is it TNT that's showing like some esports now?
I think so. Well, also,
I think they were the first network that actually said, hey, you know what? We're actually going to pay to like put the stuff on.
I don't know if they came before. ESPN2 has been running EVO for 2 years.
Yeah.
The finals. I think
that's legit.
That's a real, we're going to cover this
EVO is
thing.
not going to pay.
No, EVO can't afford that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Capcom may be helping incentivize, but that seems, and also like the second time they did it is purely because the first time did pretty well.
Yeah. What's the date for EVO this year?
Late this month.
Late this month?
I think so, yeah. Usually late July.
I might be in Vegas for my usual trip when EVO happens.
That could be.
I'm there from like July 27th to the like 30th or something.
That sounds about right.
Wow. You may be getting live streams from Shane on his cell phone from EVO. That would be pretty sweet.
Oh, no. August 3rd to August 5th.
Ah, I'm just going to miss it.
Later than usual this year.
That sucks. Anyway. So anyway, most of the time when you see esports on TV, it's because the publisher of that game is paying that TV network to air it on its air. It's not because ESPN was saying, hey, we think Heroes of the Dorm is going to be a ratings bonanza. It's because, hey, Blizzard's going to give us like $1 million to air this. But this deal that Blizzard has signed with ESPN and Disney and all those, that now huge umbrella of networks and distribution is legit. It's just as if the NFL is getting paid by NBC to air its games. So this is a landmark blockbuster deal. Now my question is, does it matter? Does this even matter? Because we've talked about esports on TV before and how it's not the platform that people go to watch it. The ratings have not been good. They've actually been abysmal for esports on television. And I wouldn't expect the ratings for this to be much better. But do you think it'll be any better? And do you think linear television is ever going to be a place for esports to thrive?
I think that's the real issue, is like your target audience who will care about this for the most part don't have cable.
Right.
Like, so how are they going to watch ESPN?
Right.
So, I don't know. I feel
I mean,
like...
at this point, a lot of the people that are left on cable are old.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm right on the... I'm holding on to DirecTV with my fingernails. And I am literally... I've been in the process of doing everything I need to do to ditch it. So I got, like, networking stuff to put in our bedroom. And I'm getting rid of an old TV and moving the one that used to be in our studio into the bedroom. And I'm getting ready to cut the cord. So I'm right there. But, like, my mom would never consider cutting the cord, like, ever. Like, that's not even... Like, I told her, and she's like, what? You've loved DirecTV, like, your whole life. And I'm like, times change. And I'm getting ripped off having DirecTV right now. So I'm going to change, but should they even be going for linear television, though? Because my mom's not going to watch eSports.
No. I don't know. I mean, if you're going to air it on, like, straight up ABC... That's different because that's, anyone can get that.
And also, in a lot of cases, it's actually broadcast through the air.
Right.
People with antennas can watch it.
That's a broadcast network. You can watch it with an antenna. You can watch it online. There's no restrictions for that. ESPN's different.
Yeah.
And like, it's weird to me to, like, I don't know, like if they're gonna try to replace the Twitch streams or the streaming thing like that, because at least like with Evo. You have the stream and you have the ESPN2 coverage. It's completely separate coverage. Like the announcers aren't the same.
Right.
Like it's completely. I mean, you're getting the same feed, but it's clearly two different directors, like directing
different tone,
what's coming out.
Different everything. Yeah.
I mean, if you got that, that's cool. But like the audience that wants to watch Overwatch is going to watch it where they've watched it the whole rest of the season. They're probably not going to switch to like ESPN for the sake of whatever. Also, ESPN has commercials that are like I know, like, the streams have commercials as well and breaks, but I feel like people would rather watch, like, kind of, Overwatch has, like, sort of the rotating, like, stat screens while that's happening, and I feel like the viewers probably prefer that to, like, being sold Old Spice again.
Do you think, what if ABC, Disney, ESPN said to Blizzard, look, we'll do this deal with you, but none of this can be streamed now. We are the exclusive broadcast partner for Overwatch eSports. None of this stuff goes on to Twitch from now on. None of this stuff goes on Mixer. How do you think that would go down?
That would be a horrible decision. Like, you'd be alienating a tremendous amount of your
The
audience.
ratings would go up, obviously.
They'd go up, but you wouldn't, tons
you
of
wouldn't
people...
get
You wouldn't get a lot of the people that simply don't have cable.
Yeah.
They don't want cable. They're not going to get cable just to do that. They're just going to be angry about it,
Do you think... I mean, look... Esports fans are hardcore.
They are.
Like, I've been doing a lot of research on esports lately, and the fan engagement with esports teams is higher than all but 2 NBA teams. Do you not think that maybe if esports started going to linear television, that some of these people who cut the cord or never had cable might consider getting cable or satellite?
I mean, it's possible, but, like, blackmail isn't really the best marketing strategy.
No. But it works sometimes.
Sometimes. But I also feel like if there's one thing that we know about people that are into gaming stuff is they're very sensitive to feeling like they're being exploited or taken advantage of by these companies.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a pretty transparent example of that.
Yeah.
So I don't think they'd react well to that, and you probably don't want to mess with the people that got you where you are.
And I don't think any publisher would agree to it either. I mean,
no, it would be...
Well, like, no way, we're not taking down our streams.
Well, Blizzard also certainly wouldn't agree to it because they want to keep that control.
Right. Yeah.
Like handing over all control to ABC is not really a smart move.
But TV networks aren't going to sign those contracts unless they have some control.
Somewhat, but it's also at the same time, like, who needs whom?
Yeah.
Like the TV networks, I feel, are the ones who are chasing the dragon here.
Oh, they absolutely
They're
are.
looking for a reason to be relevant.
Yeah.
And this is one of their last chances. Whereas Blizzard has the product that people want. So I feel like Blizzard is in the powerful negotiating sector here.
Yeah.
I think media, like traditional media, kind of spins this story the wrong way, or has been, because you're still in the, if you're in that form of media, you're kind of still in this realm where you think of the TV side of that equation as more legitimate.
Yeah.
But that's simply not true anymore, especially not in this scenario. Like, and Overwatch isn't like doing League of Legends numbers or anything, but like it's a dedicated, existing and pre-installed fan base that TV would love to have the eyeballs of, even
especially the
a fraction of
demographic.
Yeah.
The 13 to 24. I mean, that is, you pay big money for that demo.
Yeah. This is, to me, this is not Blizzard saying, please put us on real television. This is television saying, please let us reach these people.
Or it's also television saying we need more live programming, because live is the only thing that rates anymore on television, other than like your bigger sitcoms and stuff like that.
And the World Championship of darts only happens so many times.
Exactly.
That is a great thing to watch on ESPN too, by the way. If you ever stumble across the World Championship of darts.
But that is the one thing, as ratings fall across the board for everything, the one thing that isn't taking as big a hit is live sporting events. And I think right now, the networks are trying to get as much of that as they can, no matter what it is. And that's why you're seeing, like, the darts championship live on ESPN. Dude, I saw a live cornhole tournament on ESPN the other day. I mean, that's how desperate they're getting, because they realize...
I didn't even know that's what they called that.
Well, it depends. Like, on the East Coast, they call it cornhole. Out here, they call it, like, something else.
They call it beanbag toss.
Yeah. And
because we don't cornhole things over here.
It's something else, yeah.
That's a totally different...
thing out here.
A different sport.
On the East Coast... sport. On the East Coast, it is called cornhole, though, because it used to be that the bags were filled with corn kernels, and you'd throw them, and anyway... Cornhole's fun, man. It's great.
Cornholing.
Nothing better than a keg and some cornhole.
Shane Satterfield endorsed.
But anyway, the networks are just trying desperately to get anything that's live, because that's the stuff that still rates, because people want to watch live stuff as it happens. They don't want to get stuff spoiled for them on social media or whatever. So you're just seeing this mad scramble, and I think now they're starting to realize, hey, there's this audience. Maybe if we exert enough leverage or pressure against the esports fans, we could get some of them to come over and then use that as a Trojan horse to try to get them turned on to our other programming, our other shows.
If you like
never
Overwatch,
work, by the way.
you'll love
it
darts.
It will never work, by the way. But I think that's the angle.
I'm sure they're looking for the poker saved their asses for several years.
Yeah.
When somebody
and
figured
that's
out.
waned now. Yeah.
Somebody figured out you stick a lipstick cam down there and you can show the players can show their cards to the camera.
Yeah.
And that's because for years that was one of the things people were like, TV was trying to figure out, how do you present cards? How do you present poker tournaments?
Yeah.
And whoever came up with that, hopefully he got millions of dollars for it.
Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah.
You got to put it on a delay too. That was the other thing they had to figure out.
Yeah.
Because obviously, if you're showing your cards live,
right,
you have somebody across the room who's going to send you signals like, it'll go all in. So, yeah, even poker's waned. You're right, though. That was kind of a stopgap for a while for almost every sports network. Yeah. Like, ESPN started it by televising the World Series of Poker, but then next thing you know, like CBS Sports Network and Fox Sports 1, they all are like broadcasting these little dinky poker tournaments.
There was a period where I don't think 24 hours a day you could find poker somewhere on television.
By the way, the World Series of Poker is going on right now, and they're at the final table. But don't leave this to go watch poker. You can watch the replays.
It's not even live.
It's not. It's at least 5 minutes delayed. But it's an interesting tack. It's a change. It's interesting to see finally the network saying, okay, you know what? The shoe's on the other foot now. We're going to pay you to get this content. And that will also further incentivize the networks to actually market it. Because that was another problem. It's like when you sign, say Blizzard paid ESPN to air Heroes of the Dorm. You only get X amount of promos run at whatever time the network says. Now the network is incentivized to make this a success because it already has skin in the game. So they're going to promote it more. Not only are they going to promote it more, they're going to promote it at times other than 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. They're actually going to show maybe a commercial for it during Sports Center, one of its bigger broadcasts, or during live college football or whatever. So to me, this could be a shift. I certainly would be delusional to think that there's any chance of it overtaking streaming for esports, but I do think there's an opportunity to make it profitable on linear television.
It could. I mean, if anyone's expecting it to be like catch fire and revolutionize, the sports broadcasting world, I feel like that is optimistic.
Yeah.
But there's no reason they could. If you can show the World Darts Tournament regularly, you can show this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like maybe as the time goes on, the amounts of money get adjusted one way or the other. But I feel like seeing video game tournaments on sports networks is not going to be considered particularly unusual 5 years from now.
Yep. All right, let's move on. As we like to say, when the content's low, we go high-low. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now. We have another round of high-low where I ask Matt some questions and I give him a figure, and he tells me whether the end result, the real result, is going to be higher or lower. Did you actually skim these already?
Yeah.
No, that ruins it. I should have left them off your rundown.
Yeah, usually you do.
Yeah. I was hurried to get here today.
I thought you were changing the game up a little bit.
I had problems rendering B-roll today. Like the garage B-roll that we showed, I had to render it like 10 times before it went through. I don't know what was going on. And then we watched it for like Then we watched it for like 90 seconds. That's what I do for you people. All right, so your first question, high or low? And this is the big question everyone's been asking. Nintendo Switch, 20 million units in 2018, higher or lower? And just for context, right now the Switch is sitting at around 9 million, and we're a little bit past halfway for the year.
Is it only 9?
Yeah.
It was over that. Wow.
For the year, not total.
Oh, just
for
the
this
year.
Yeah.
So
will it hit 20?
So will it sell 20 million total in 2018,
right.
not including last year?
Right.
No, lower.
Lower. So it's halfway there.
I think it'll sell. I think it'll hit 20 million total this year, but 20 million just in this calendar year.
They were already at 15 million when they've already hit 20 million total.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're not. I don't think they're going to sell 11 million more Switches this year.
No. Not with Smash and Pokemon.
Pokemon is going to help, but I'm pretty convinced that most of the people who want Smash Brothers already own a Switch. I don't think Smash Brothers moves hardware.
But I think Pokemon will.
It might.
Like a lot.
Not 11 million.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Smash, I think, if Smash Brothers moved hardware, the Wii U would have sold better.
Yeah, you're right. And by the way, Nintendo just doubled down on that 20 million figure this week.
Yeah, well,
a lot of people were skeptical. Pactor's skeptical. He says no. He doesn't think they'll hit it.
I don't think so. I mean, I know Pactor said they won't without a price drop. I don't see them dropping the price anytime soon.
I don't either.
I think it might get close, like it could get like maybe 16, 17, but breaking 20, that seems very optimistic. Considering the release schedule, they've got 3 games. They got 3 games left this year.
The current pace generally is 3 million every 4 months is how it's selling. So I will agree with you. I don't think it quite hits the 20 million for 2018, but I think it's going to be closer than people think. I do think Pokemon's going to move hardware because it's been a long time since we've had a console Pokemon. These people have been living on the 3DS and the DS for a really long time. And I think there may be a lot of those people, the younger folks with parents or whatever, and it's Christmas, it's coming out of Christmas. I think it's going to move some hardware. Another 11 million, I think that's asking a bit much, but...
Yeah, I think it'll move hardware. I just don't think it'll move that kind of hardware. It's also, again, I think, a kind of baby's first Pokemon game and a Smash Brothers remix is kind of your target for that is pretty much the true believer Nintendo fan, and they all have a Switch already.
Yeah.
Like, unless they start buying multiples, because that isn't what Nintendo wants. Nintendo wants everyone in the family to have their own Switch.
I know. And by the way, Switches are cracking.
Yep.
Mine's really bowed now. I put it on a flat surface. I tweeted this out. I put it on a flat surface, and you can see the light underneath my Switch. So.
I haven't done that with mine in a while. I should see. It's been in that dock for almost a year.
I do not have cracks, but that started to become a thing too. Like the back plate is starting to crack on the Switch.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the power, like the casing around the power button will crack.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, I almost never press the power button, so I'm sure mine is in better shape.
Yeah, it's probably fine.
Because I turn it off and on with the Pro controller.
Because you have to turn it on to use the power
It's almost
button.
never touched. Like the only time I touch it is to switch the cartridge, basically.
Yeah. So an addendum to that. So you said no on the 20 million. I think it's going to be close, but I also agree that no. Mm-hmm. Will it outsell the PlayStation 4 in 2018? Right now, the PlayStation 4, right now the PlayStation 4 has probably about 1 million, 2 million unit lead.
I do not think it will outsell the PlayStation.
You don't?
No, I think PlayStation will hold the lead.
Really? Under what premise?
It's PlayStation. It's got more stuff. It's got more coming out. It's got Black Ops 4 in the pocket. Like, I think it's going to have probably another price drop for the base model at some point. Like, there's going to be tons of bundles. Like, I just think there's more there.
I think to your point, though, you're talking about how all the Nintendo fans have bought one already. I mean, who doesn't have a PlayStation 4 at this point?
Yeah, but I would have said that for the years and years and years where the PlayStation 2 kept topping the charts too. I mean, I don't know what these people do with their extra PlayStation. I mean, I have 2 of them.
Yeah.
It's people just keep going and going with these things, and I think there's still people that are going to be willing to adopt a PlayStation 4 Pro, because even if you already have a PlayStation 4, the Pro is still sitting there taunting you with its slightly better performance.
Yeah. Ever so slightly.
If you start get a decent bundle going, I think it'll beat the Switch. I think it's just got more going on right now.
Huh. I think I'm actually going to go with the Switch on this one. I just can't think of any exclusive games for PlayStation 4 that's going to move hardware. Maybe, even though it's not exclusive, Red Dead a little bit. There may be some people who have been waiting for that game.
There's stuff. There's things. I heard things about Marvin's Room.
I just think there's a lot of people who don't have Switches yet, and there aren't that many people who don't have PS4s.
I think there's more people interested in a PlayStation 4, especially considering the lineup, and I think you're drastically overestimating how many Switches Pokemon Go is going to move. Pokemon Let's Go.
We'll see. Next up, and actually we kind of segued nicely into this.
Also,
next one.
I know 4 people who are buying a PlayStation 4 for Spider-Man.
Wow.
So...
That's
big. Now, my follow-up question is like, what the hell about Spider-Man is convincing you that nothing else that's on that system hasn't already?
Right.
But like, Spider-Man is going to move consoles.
That's good. That's good to hear.
It definitely will. I don't know why. It's weird to me that Spider-Man is the tipping point for people, but anecdotally, yeah.
It's not that surprising, honestly.
I guess, but it's like the idea
people love Spider-Man.
Oh, people love Spider-Man, sure, but like the
and
idea that
video games very well.
The idea that nothing else in the PS4 library has like really pushed you over the edge. Yeah. It's like, oh, Spider-Man. I mean, I guess so, but like,
well, maybe part of it too is that they're seeing like The Last of Us is coming up and some stuff like that.
They don't know any of them. They don't even know what The Last of Us is.
Oh, okay.
They're super casual.
Wow.
But Spider-Man is pulling them in.
That actually makes sense.
I mean, these are
that makes total sense.
These are people
really
that they're still playing a 360.
They waited till now. Yeah.
They're playing a 360.
Boy, they are in for a great next year of their lives.
Buckle up.
I wish I could do that.
I said when you do it, let me know. I'll give you a list of 12 things you need to play after Spider-Man.
Well, you could probably hand them a huge library of games that you're not playing.
I got a lot of digital shit.
Ah, right.
I've really gone hard on the digital.
You've become a bad friend in this generation.
Yeah.
You can't loan your games out anymore.
It's because I want everyone to come over.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Okay, let's move on to the next.
Come over for 20 hours and play God of War.
Watch me play God of War.
I already played it. I don't need to play it again.
Do you want to watch them play it at your house?
I got another TV in the other room.
Next one. Black Ops 4. More or less than Black Ops 3 in the first 3 months. So basically, by the end of the year, will Black Ops 4 have sold as much as Black Ops 3 did during that same period?
I'm going to say Black Ops 4 sells less.
Sells less.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there's a lot to consider here.
Yeah.
So, no campaign in Black Ops 4, but there's a Battle Royale. And there are way more consoles available now than there were for Black Ops 3. But you still think Black Ops 3...
How much did Black Ops 3 sell in those first 3 months?
Black Ops 3 life to date has sold over 14 million copies. I don't know what it sold during those 3 months, though.
I know it's a monster, but I don't know what it was in the first 3 months. I don't know. I feel
Black Ops 3, by the way, was kind of the last Call of Duty that sold gangbusters. That set like
the doors
records
off everything.
Yeah.
That was my impression for sure. I think this is going to be a slower burn.
Okay.
And the Battle Royale thing is a good point, but conquering...
It's a wild card, right?
Conquering Fortnite's like just mind share powers. I mean, you're still getting mainstream news outlets putting out articles about like the only game that mattered at E3, and it was Fortnite.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And the fact that Fortnite is free is, as opposed to paying $60 for this thing with a Battle Royale mode that a lot of people are skeptical about. I don't know.
People are going to buy Call of Duty no matter what.
Oh, sure, of course. But like in the droves that they used to, I don't know if this is going to move that needle. I feel like it's not going to be as strong as 3 was. 3 was just the only thing people talked about for a couple weeks, for a month almost after it came out. Which was annoying to me because I didn't buy it and I didn't care.
Yeah.
But like I sure heard about it because it was the zeitgeist at the time. I just don't know if this can capture that, especially in the wake of Red Dead Redemption.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. that might hurt it more than anything. But I do think that the Battle Royale mode in this is its wild card. I think it is what could help it sell as well as Black Ops 3. I'd agree with you. I don't think it's going to hit those numbers. I don't think the lack of a campaign has all that much to do with it, in all honesty.
I don't think so.
I just think that the brand itself, Call of Duty, has just kind of been diluted over the last couple years. It's been spotty. Its successes and failures have been spotty.
It's also an old man's game.
Like us, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a 40-something
meaning
game.
like the 20. No, really though. Meaning like the 25 to 30-year-olds play it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, well, look at the pictures of the crowd at the Fortnite E3 event.
Oh, I know.
Children everywhere.
They
like,
are.
I mean, that's
all the kids.
what it is. The kids.
Every
it's the next
friend
generation.
of mine who has kids, their kids play Fortnite.
Look at a few.
Not just play it, like, are so obsessed with it they have to like drag them away from it.
Oh, yeah. Look at a couple weeks ago, Cliff Bleszinski's nephews visited. And he was trying to get Ninja's attention on Twitter so that he would say hi to his nephew. Like, they didn't care about anything but Fortnite.
Nope,
like, all they
that's it.
wanted to do was play Fortnite and watch Fortnite and Fortnite.
Yeah.
And now imagine being Cliff.
No, I know.
Coming off of Lawbreakers and be like, all right, it's Fortnite week in my house now.
Talk about admitting total defeat. That's it. When your nephew or your niece is like, I want to play, but I have this game over here called Lawbreakers. What's that? Like, it's really funny to think about. But I agree with you on this one. I do not think that it will sell as well as Black Ops 3. I think if the Battle Royale mode becomes a big thing, it could.
Yeah, if the Battle Royale catches fire, it could. I'm not willing to bet on that just yet.
And I think
maybe when we see more, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it'll take a lot of evangelizing for the Battle Royale mode to go off.
Well,
because
the price
no
of
one's
entry.
going to pay for the Battle Royale mode. People are going to pay for Call of Duty Black Ops 4, and then if the Battle Royale mode is really good, then they start telling people, and the influencers take over, and next thing you know, it blows up.
It becomes the thing, you got to play this.
Right. And then people are like, okay, I will pay for that to play it.
Because PUBG had that happen. I mean, PUBG was, what, $30?
Yep.
And, like, that's a steep price for
one
mode.
Just one mode, yeah.
One map and one mode.
People thought it was worth it.
But if it becomes the big new thing, you'll move the copies, and Black Ops 4 has to do that, and I'm just not super convinced it can in the face of Fortnite.
Yeah. All right, here's the last question, and this is a really easy one, I think. Red Dead Redemption 2 will sell higher or lower 14 million units across its lifetime. Just for reference, the original Red Dead has sold 14 million units to date.
I would think it's going to sell more than that.
Yeah. I would say it's going to sell way more than that.
I don't know if it's going to sell crazy good. Like
it's not going to sell GTA
it's not
5
GTA, but it's going to do
But dude, GTA
just
5
fine.
sold like 50 million copies. Like, it's ridiculous. It's the best-selling game ever. I think I wouldn't be surprised 5 years from now Red Dead Redemption 2 sold 25 million though.
Yeah. I mean, I think it will have legs the way GTA 5 did.
Absolutely. A lot of that will depend on how they support it afterwards, but we already know there's online. Which, isn't it kind of surprising we haven't heard anything about that still? Well,
they're still working on the Battle Royale mode.
Yeah. I mean, but the game's coming pretty soon here, and we still don't know anything about its multiplayer.
Rockstar knows the world is Rockstar's oyster. They don't need to, they can do it at their own pace.
They don't need to do anything. You can just keep making money off GTA Online. Yeah. It's really insane.
It's, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that all works because I guess like the Western theme is popular around the world, more or less.
And it's obviously not being exploited. It's one of the few like themes in games that's not completely like oversaturated at this point.
I feel like this Red Dead's Battle Royale mode has a better chance of being the breakout than Black Ops 4's.
Because it's different.
It's different. It's part of a game that people are going to buy anyway.
Yeah.
It's going to be the thing people are talking about. I mean, I have Uber drivers talking to me about Red Dead Redemption 2. Like people that they
find out you work in games and they're like,
oh, I
really?
can't wait for Red Dead Redemption 2. It's like, man, everybody knows about this. Like to the point, this is earlier than most non-hardcore people should know about a game that, frankly, is not a household name. It's not GTA. It's not, and the mind share is absolutely there.
That Rockstar
so I think it's going to be a big deal. And I wouldn't surprise me if Battle Royale in that game became the new hotness simply on the back of the fact that everybody has the game anyway. Yeah. And now they finished it, and we might as well play this thing.
What will have sold more copies by the end of the year? Black Ops 4 or Red Dead Redemption 2?
Red Dead.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's a pick 'em. That's like a draw.
It's close. It could be either, but
Yeah.
I think it's going to be Red Dead.
Yeah. Seems like people are talking about it more.
Yeah.
For sure. Just anecdotally. But
part of that might just be that Black Ops 4 is also kind of playing it pretty close to the vest.
yeah. Although that's about to change. They just announced today 2 betas. It's going to be a beta for multiplayer and then a beta just for Blackout, which is the Battle Royale mode. You get it early on PlayStation 4. I think the multiplayer one kicks off on August 2nd, and then the Battle Royale beta is in September, but they haven't given a date for that yet. So, actually, in just a couple weeks, you'll be able to play Black Ops 4 multiplayer beta. So, and then it's like a week in advance on PS4 and then other platforms after that. So, won't be long.
You pretty much played the game at that point.
Yeah. You're right, though.
Yeah.
If you're in both betas, you've kind of consumed the whole game.
Yeah.
Other than zombies.
Yeah.
Which zombies they are blowing out bigger
They're
this
blowing
time,
out pretty hard, but it's like still kind of a known quantity.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Well, we agreed on that one. Easily over 14 million units in its lifetime.
I would think so, unless something goes catastrophically wrong.
Yeah, it would have to be, well, the first game was pretty buggy when it first came out.
Yeah, it overcame it, though.
It did, yeah, ultimately, to sell 14 million units. So, there you go. All right, so move on to the last topic of GameFace episode 134. We're going to talk about a game you may not have even heard of.
I hadn't.
Because that's where we're at right now. But it's one of the only major releases that came out this week other than Red Faction. And it's
Major.
called... Yeah. Meaning it's not an indie game.
Right.
It's called MXGP Pro. And it is a motocross off-road racing game, but it's a little different. So this comes from Milestone that literally puts out like 4 or 5 racing games a year. I don't know how it does it. It makes like the F1 franchise and a bunch of other stuff. And it also makes a lot of motorcycle games. But this is like its signature motocross franchise. And this game has shown me, once again, why you need to play games for quite a bit before passing judgment on them. Because the first hour I spent with this game, I literally thought it was the worst video game I have played in the last 20 years. I'm not even exaggerating, Matt. I laughed at this game for the first hour I played it. And the reason I laughed at it is because it does all kinds of goofy stuff that you would have not seen in a game in forever. Like the physics in the game, first of all, it goes for realism. It's like more realistic than any motorcycle game you've ever played. So it has like the base elements that, I don't know if you played Excite Bike 64. Did you play that at all?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember how you had to always make sure your bike was angled properly when you landed, and you had to like load your shocks and then release them when you went into the air to get more air? It has that stuff, but that is like the basics. So with the right stick, you have to adjust the angle like forward and backwards, but you also have to lean into turns. And if you don't, you cannot lean into turns, but you will get your ass handed to you in this game if you don't do the leaning. And then there are no tricks in this game at all. Not a single trick. But when you catch air, you essentially need to do a tabletop and make your bike flat as you go through the air, or otherwise you'll lose a ton of speed when you go through any jumps. So it is this hardcore, rigid, aggro dirt biking simulation. And literally for the first hour I played this game, I could hardly even make it around a turn. It was so hard. And then even when you would make it around a turn, the game does have like wonky physics. Sometimes you're just riding down like a dirt patch and you just fall over. Like literally there's like physics issues or glitches. But as I kept playing this game, just to let you know how hard this is, Matt, the career mode, the first race you enter, your goal is to finish 12th out of 22. That's the goal of your first race. So when I first started playing it, like messing around, I'm like, oh my God, this is like freaking impossible. Then I started playing the career and I'm like, oh, they know it's impossible and they've set expectations accordingly. Well, let me tell you, Matt, those first few races, I finished 22nd in every single one of them. Not only finished 22nd, got lapped. And the laps in this, because it's MXGP, each lap in this is like 5 miles. Literally, it takes like 4 minutes to make each lap in this game. So it's a big commitment as well. But what I found is that I started playing this game and I started getting into the groove. I really started to like it. it started to become one of those games where you methodically work your way up through the pack. It's not like, oh, I got the whole shot, I'm in first place, I'm going to stay in first place the whole way. It is a war, a literal war, the entire freaking race. Like, if one thing I would warn people off from with this game is you have to concentrate really hard for extended periods of time. Each race lasts like 10 to 15 minutes, and you have to concentrate because literally one little dirt clot, if you hit it wrong, will toss you off the bike, and then if you get tossed off the bike, you get passed by like 10 or 15 bikes, like immediately. Like, it's always in a pack, but that's also what makes it fun, is when you, like, watch this. So when you go into this first turn, your heart just goes ba-bum, 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 because you're surrounded by like 21 other motorcycles that are all following in a line. You're worrying about how slippery is it, how muddy is it, how much does it react. I've become a fan of this game, Matt, and I literally laughed my ass off at it for the first hour and a half I played it. Like, I didn't even think I was going to talk about it on GameFace. In fact, I was just going to put up like a hangout of me playing it and sucking at it and laughing at myself playing it. And then at a certain point...
Oh!
Yeah.
You are dead.
Yeah, I was dead, yeah. At a certain point, though, like, this switch went off in my head where I started to get it and I started to understand it. And then I just started building on my skills, and I got to the point now where I finished like top 3 or 4 in every race. So if you're into motocross, off-road motorcycle racing, I honestly have never played a game that's more realistic. Now the problem is they still have a lot of kinks to work out where there's just physics glitches where you just get tossed off your bike for like no reason, and the races are so long and so demanding that like the first time that happens to you, you want to break the disc in half and like never touch it again. But
you have a disc?
Yeah, I have a disc version of this game. Yeah, it sells for $50, by the way. It should cost $30. At least it's not the full 60. There's online multiplayer, pretty basic. Basically, you just join a server and you just keep repeating races with the same people over and over again. You can kind of play through circuits, but it's pretty much bare bones. There's a career mode where you work your way up. You know, you start with a sponsor. It's a crappy sponsor. You win races. You win fans. Another game where you have to like build your following or whatever. And then as you go, you unlock new parts, and the parts actually make a huge difference on your bike. You can feel them. Every time you install something new, you can feel the difference in it. It's just a really rigid motocross sim. And I realize the audience for that may be pretty small. There may not be a lot of people out there that have been waiting or looking for a game like this.
That's what this company makes. You bounced off that man's head.
Yeah.
That's what this company makes. I mean, I don't know a lot about this series, but I have some motorsport friends that swear by their F1 games.
Yeah. I've become a fan of the game. And a lot of people, or maybe some people, may actually go buy this and say, I do like motocross. I do want a sim. And they'll play that first race, and they'll hate me. I guarantee you they will hate me. They'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe I bought this listening to Shane. But I'm telling you, if you stick with it, if you get up and get on the bike again after you fall, you're going to get to that point where I did, where everything just kind of, the switch flips and it starts making sense. It reminds me a lot of the first time I played Gran Turismo. And I had lived my whole life playing like these arcade racing games. And suddenly I was forced to hit the brake when I was going around turns. And that's how this game kind of hit me, was, oh, wow, I've never really played a game like this before, and I wasn't good at it. I'm like, this game sucks. And because there's nothing else to play, this is actually one case where because there's nothing else to play, I stuck with the game, and now I absolutely am enjoying it. So I don't want to spend a ton of time on this. I realize a lot of you guys may not be into motocross racing games, but even just watching these replays, you can see how it's different than any other motorcycle game. You've never seen this many bikes going around turns at the same time in any racing game before. It looks better in these replays than it does playing it real time, I'll say that much. They definitely gussy it up. It doesn't look this good while you're playing it. And there are some technical shortcomings. There are a couple tracks where literally the game almost stopped completely because the frame rate bottomed out. There are
I definitely saw
issues.
I saw some chopping when it pans across the grid.
Yep.
At the beginning of the race.
It has issues, but again, there's no other motorcycle racing game like it. In fact, they've put out 3 of these already, and none of them even come close to being as good as this one. So if you're looking for something different for your motorcycle games, you're a little patient, and you're not going to just give up and hate something because it doesn't click with you right away, I think this might be a game that could resonate with you, and a game that you could play for a really, really long time. One thing I'll say before we go to the trailer of the week, though, is the multiplayer, the online multiplayer, is kind of annoying because the way it works is it will send you into a server where the game is already going on, and then you have to sit there and watch the race. And the races could be 5 or 6 laps long, and the laps are literally like 4 or 5 minutes apiece. So there's lots of times where I would join a server, and I just have to sit there and watch the people race and finish the race for like 10 minutes before it would let me join in. But other than that, it's a great racing sim. Really, in my opinion, realistic. I did grow up riding dirt bikes and off-road motorcycles, so I have at least a little bit of a good idea of how they're supposed to handle in the real world. I felt like this was the best simulation I've played of motocross so far. So there you go, MXGP Pro. And the reviews for this have been all over the place because some people were like me the first hour, and were like, this game is like, I can't even play this game. It's like one of the worst games I've ever played. So some reviews are like a 2 out of 10. But then you'll find the people who stuck with it and got good at it and realized its charms, and then it's getting like 8 out of 10. So one of those polarizing games. I ended up falling on both sides. I hated it at first, and then I ultimately ended up liking it. So there you go. And now it's time for our trailer of the week. And it may not be a good week for games, but it was a good week for trailers. However, I felt an obligation to run with this trailer because you and I are not big Fortnite people. And this is a huge week for Fortnite. Season 5 launched just yesterday or the day before? Yesterday?
Sure.
I knew we weren't going to talk about it, right? Exactly. It's like the biggest story in gaming right now. We don't really play Fortnite, and I figured we might as well show the launch trailer for Season 5. So here you go. It's so funny. I know so little about Fortnite. I don't even understand the significance of that trailer.
No, I don't really either. I assume like things from history are falling into the, I don't know.
It looks like there are vehicles and like a golf cart and a boat, but why would you use the boat?
Well, it's a Viking ship. So
yeah.
Like Worlds Collide makes me think that they're just pulling stuff. It's a stagecoach.
Yeah, it appears that you can jump through time in some way.
I don't know.
Figured we'd show it, though, for people who do care about Fortnite. It's not that I don't care about it. I just played it when it first came out and then never really went back. All right, let's get to some questions. Right now is a good time to get your questions in. Thank you, Dark Force 256, for subscribing to our channel, man. Appreciate it very much. Let's see. W. Matthew, we have to answer one of his questions every time. I know the two of you aren't big Warframe fans, but why do you think a game that has such a large player base gets so little coverage? Side note, personal preference, but I like it way more than Destiny 2.
I don't know.
I know why.
Probably because it takes so much of a time commitment to play it thoroughly and effectively that the gaming press doesn't have time to really delve into it much. I
think its first impressions have a huge impact. And I think for most people, I'm speaking for myself, but I think a lot of other people were in the same boat as I was. I think for a lot of people, the first time they played Warframe was at the PlayStation 4 launch because it was a free game and it looked like it wasn't an indie game. It looked like it maybe had a budget behind it, and I played it for like a few hours and I lost interest in it pretty quickly. Now, here's the thing about Warframe. It is probably the gold standard for a game transforming over time into something amazing. And I just honestly have never gone back to it. And I have a feeling that a lot of journalists are that way. They're just
I went back to it.
Did you?
Yeah, it's really good now.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked it before. I played it when it first came out, and I played it when the PlayStation 4 launched. I didn't play it as much as I wanted when the PlayStation 4 launched because it was overheating and crashing my PlayStation 4.
That's right. I remember that. Yeah.
And I called Sony and I said, hey, this is clearly it's making my PS4 overheat and restart. And they said, well, can you just not play Warframe? And I said, that is not a solution to my problem.
That is not the answer.
And I ended up sending it back to them. They sent it back to me and it was fixed, but I just never went back to Warframe because it was a bit of paranoia.
Yeah.
I did go back to Warframe. It was right before they did the open world update.
Yeah.
Because there was that thing on Steam where somebody hit the wrong button or something, and the $120 pack was $9.
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, I'll buy that, sure. So I bought that, and I'm like, as long as I got.
They didn't take it back?
No, they didn't take any of it back.
Wow.
They said it was our bad.
I'm surprised.
We'll be more careful. We hope you play it and enjoy it instead. And so I was like, okay, I'll play some. I'll get back into this. And they've revamped everything. It's completely unrecognizable compared to what I played before. And then they did the open world update, and that changes things even more. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I don't have the time to really delve into this, but like, I have a lot of respect for what they've done with that game, and it looks really cool. And it doesn't look like anything else. And like, yeah, it's Destiny-ish, but like, I mean, overall, from what I've seen, I would agree that I think it does what Destiny wants to do better than Destiny.
Wow.
Except it does not feel, the gunplay moment to moment does not feel as good as Destiny.
Yeah.
But I mean, if Bungie's firing on all cylinders in gameplay design, you're not going to match them.
Yeah.
Certainly not digital extremes.
Yeah.
But like, I think in terms of, like, just in terms of improvement and kind of like, you start that game up for free and you're like, wow, this is what I get for free. Like, Warframe is a really good first impression now.
Yeah. So I have been doing, because things are so slow in the industry right now, I've been doing on our new show, The Grind, I've been going back and playing older games and kind of seeing how they've evolved over time. The first one I did was Splatoon 2. Warframe is probably a really good candidate for that, so maybe I'll choose that for an episode of The Grind coming up. Let's see. SJD Swanland. Matt, I recently bought and watched A Touch of Zen. Because I enjoyed it, I was wondering if, besides Akira Kurosawa's movies, do you have some recommendations for movies like this that I should try watching?
I have not seen A Touch of Zen, so I don't know what he's asking for.
Okay.
Could,
simple answer there.
Clarify that, and I can give you some better answers, maybe.
Killzone 310. I haven't seen you for a while, brother. Hope you're doing well. What's your favorite multiplayer memory?
I mean, you're probably going back to the early 90s.
I have so many, but I do have one that I'll share.
There's a couple that I won't repeat for propriety's sake.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite multiplayer memories overall are probably the months where NBA Jam ruled the arcade comic shop I worked at, and the whole staff and the regular customers continually competed. Like, they were scheduled games and everything, and everybody had their own like win quote and stuff when they'd win, and the owner would turn around and he'd win with the Chicago Bulls, and he'd turn around and be like, "By the gods of thunder!" And like, the evenings in that era were like the best multiplayer time I ever had, probably. I know people. I know the question was probably thinking of like online stuff, but like all my best multiplayer memories are in-person arcade stuff.
Yep. I mean, I could talk about arcade days. I could talk about the N64 days. The N64 era in general, to me, was just the pinnacle of multiplayer gaming, because it was, like Matt said, it was the best of both worlds. It was the arcade vibe of people being next to you, but it was also sort of advanced technology, so it wasn't the crude technology of a lot of the old arcade games. But the one thing I will talk about is, as you guys all know, I'm a huge fan of Star Siege Tribes. Back when I was working at GameSpot, back in 2000, I think it was, I had just started working there, and Greg Kasavin was the editor-in-chief, and he ran our team. And I always talked to him about Tribes. He was a big PC gamer. I always tried to get him to play it, and I was like, oh man, it's so much better. And I'm like, you should try to play it. And he's like, oh, I haven't really got into it. Well, we got an invite for Tribes 2, for a preview event for Tribes 2. And I convinced him to go. Usually at GameSpot, like maybe one or two of us would go, just some people who needed to cover it. But he said he would go and check it out because I had talked up Tribes so much. Tribes 2, by the way, was terrible compared to Tribes. But anyway, that's beside the point. So we go to the event, And they have all these kiosks set up, and we're all playing, and I'm playing, and I'm pretty good at Tribes because I have been playing the original Tribes already, and a lot of people had never like played Tribes at all. So Greg is like looking over my shoulder because he's trying to figure out like what's this big deal? Why does Shane love this game so much? And there was one part, like eventually the people who were running the event figured out that I was one of the better players, and so they put my game up on like the big screen at the event. And I'll never forget this. The thing about Tribes 2 is that the maps were just gigantic. Like that's what ruined it really. It's like the maps were like 20 times the size of the original Tribes. But I'll never forget this. I was going towards the enemy's base, and then the enemy base was there. The enemies were coming towards me skiing. And skiing in Tribes is where you just tap the space bar, and you can just ski down hills. And then when you go on the up of the hill, you use your jetpack, and you just go like this all the way to the other base. And the enemy was coming at us, and there was a guy skiing down a mountain, literally probably 2 miles away. I'm not even exaggerating, 2 virtual miles. I see him hit the top of the mountain. He is a speck, like a pixel. I see him hit the top of the mountain, and I fire my disc spin fuser, and dude, I hit him from 2 miles away. And literally, he was a speck on the screen. I'll never forget. Greg grabbed me by the shoulders and yanked me out of the seat, and like the whole place just cheered. And I was just like, holy crap. I couldn't even believe I landed it. I was like, oh, I'll fire one. Boom. And it just literally, it was insane that I shot that guy. It's just a disc. No splash damage. Like, I literally hit him with, like, a Frisbee from, like, 2 miles away. Greg freaked out. He's like, oh, I get it now. And then the whole place went crazy. And, yeah, so that's my favorite multiplayer moment. Maybe I shouldn't have picked something where I looked good, but I did. Danny Endurance, if you had to close down, here's a tough one. If you had to close down either Rockstar or Naughty Dog after the next game, which would you give the boot? That's a good one.
Rockstar.
Oh. I would close down Naughty Dog. I would.
I guess it would depend on, like, I feel like Naughty Dog is doing more interesting and forward-thinking things with its narrative and its character work.
Agreed, 1,000%.
Whereas Rockstar, I feel like GTA 6 is just going to be more gay jokes.
It could be.
And I don't think we need any more of that.
I think...
So, if I had to pick one to continue to exist, I think Naughty Dog is more valuable for the medium.
It's tough. I still would pick Rockstar. Well, taking in output, maybe that would give the nod to Naughty Dog, because...
That's also a good point.
That's a big issue, is that Rockstar puts out a game every, like, 7 years. Mm-hmm. It's like, I start thinking about it, I'm like, when I'm dead, will I get to play Grand Theft Auto 8? Like, before I die? Maybe not. Like, even if I live to, like, a normal lifespan, I may not play that game before I die. So maybe that does give the nod to Naughty Dog. The one thing I will say is a lot of Naughty Dog's
You think
games,
you only got 2 more GTAs in you?
Maybe. Like, seriously. I mean, It could be. Or maybe I'm just so old that I can't play games very well at that point. But the one thing I would say about Naughty Dog is, you're right. They are pushing narrative more probably than any other developer in the industry. But a lot of their games, when you actually play them, tend to feel a little long in the tooth.
True.
And so do Rockstar.
But I would say the same thing about Rockstar.
You're right. Yeah, maybe I've talked myself into letting Naughty Dog
It's a
live.
really good choice of 2 companies.
It's a great question. That is one of the best questions we've ever been asked at the end of GameFace. That's really, really tough, because there's seriously pros and cons about both. But I think, honestly, the output at the end of the day will make me let Naughty Dog survive.
It could be. My answer could change if Rockstar matures as a storyteller.
But I don't think that's their thing. I think their thing is being that schoolboy, like, naughty.
Somewhat, but if so, make Bully 2.
Or maybe they do it with Red Dead 2.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I just think, I mean, even leaving that kind of content and approach aside, I felt the same thing about GTA 5. I like GTA 5 a lot, but I felt the main story and the storytelling was fairly unremarkable.
Certainly not up to the par of Naughty Dog.
No.
Not even in the same league.
I would argue not even up to par of Rockstar.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Like, Rockstar needs a new tone, I think. I think the kind of we're above it all and everything's ridiculous tone that they try to strike with the GTA games just doesn't really work anymore, especially as they make these characters more realistic people. Like, none of that tone worked for me in Michael's story. Like, I didn't understand who I was supposed to sympathize with or dislike
No,
or
I
like,
agree.
or like I mean, because I kind of like Michael, but also like, and the people around him, like the wife and the yoga instructor, were jerks to him. But then like he was a jerk to them, and like they seemed to really try to get him involved. But then he seemed like he tried to participate, and then they were jerks to him about that. And I'm just like, I just don't like anybody.
No,
Like,
that whole family sucked.
Yeah.
I didn't like anyone in that family.
Which may be the point, but like,
Maybe it was, yeah.
But it was like, maybe you need a better point for me to play something for 20 hours. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you very much, Danny Endurance. Let's see. Any game releasing this fall you think is being underrated? From Major Tom, looks like 691.
Underrated.
Or maybe flying under the radar. Darksiders 3. We don't know. I haven't touched that game. I don't know if it's good or not.
I think it's going to fly under the sales radar.
Yeah.
Trying to think of what's coming out.
There's not a lot. There's not a lot of big games left.
I mean, I have no interest in it, but I feel like maybe Super Mario Party might surprise you in the sales numbers.
Yeah.
As people are desperate for something to do with their Switch. Also, like, the Switch sort of lends itself to the party game idea in a way that the last few systems haven't.
Absolutely.
You know,
yeah,
like,
some of the stuff they've shown for that game actually looks pretty cool.
Like, if you show, like, this, I mean, if like the solution to the Mario Party issue, it might be like, oh, well, you won't come over and play Mario, but I'm going to bring the system to the party and play Mario Party with people.
Yeah.
So that could be an element. But I feel like Super Mario Party could be a surprise in the sales. So, and it's like no one's talking about it. Like, people tend to dismiss Mario Party out of hand. I certainly do, because I hate that series. But I think that game might surprise people in terms of sales popularity with non-hardcore demographic.
Okay, last question we're going to take tonight from J Reed Vic 7. With Doom, Wolfenstein, Switch ports in mind, is it a minor ding on games as art, looking and running far outside the creator's original intention on Switch and potentially robbing first-timers and newcomers of the context of the authentic vision and feel? So you're saying when you're porting a game to a lesser system and a lot of people are playing that version first, are they getting gypped, robbed?
Sort of. I mean, I would never play a multi-platform thing like that on the Switch, because why would I?
Some people just don't have a choice.
Right,
whatever.
but it's like, if I have a choice, that's my last choice, because I want the version that's going to look better and sound better and play at 60 frames a second if it can. And like, you know, like, I mean, Wolfenstein is fine on the Switch, but like they added geometry to make up for the fact that they can't render stuff out as far as they could on the other platforms. It's just like, if that's your only option, sure, but I think for the most part, people who have the option are not going to experience these things first on the Switch if they have a choice.
You're right. And also, kind of the context of your question was art. And to me, the art of games, and this is ironic, but to me, very little of it actually has to do with graphics.
Yeah, if the creators...
Which is funny, because the actual artists who work on games usually only work on the graphics.
Well, I also think if the creators aren't happy with it, they wouldn't release it.
Yeah.
Like if Bethesda or what's the name of the people that develop Wolfenstein now?
Oh.
What's that developer? I can never remember their damn name.
Machine Games?
Machine Games, yeah. If Machine Games really thought that the Switch version of Wolfenstein 2 was not an acceptable version of their vision or whatever, I don't think they'd release it.
Or they would, just to make some quick money.
Yeah, but like for the most part,
With the sales of Bethesda's games, I could actually see Bethesda at this point maybe making some sacrifices.
I don't think the Switch versions are helping you at all in that regard. I think the id guys think that playing Doom on the Switch is an inferior way to experience it. I mean, technologically maybe, but did you not really play Doom?
Yeah.
Would you not be able to
they don't feel like that. I don't think they feel like they sacrificed their art for
I would still be able to have a conversation about Doom as an artistic work with someone who only played the Switch version. Like, you're not going to get less out of it in that regard. So I think aesthetically, sure, the graphics are not as good, or maybe it doesn't run as well. But in terms of the overall experience of, I played this game and I can talk to you about this game and talk about what's important about having played this game, I don't feel there's really a big difference there.
Yep, agreed. So that's it for GameFace episode 134. Thank you to our patrons who make this all possible. Thank you to all the folks who subscribe to us through Twitch Prime during the stream, and those of you who will do it afterwards, it's making a huge difference for us. If you're listening to this on YouTube or if you're listening to this on iTunes, it's very easy to give us a free $2.50 a month. You can go on the site and figure out how, or you can just Google Twitch Prime. It's very simple. Then you just subscribe to our channel. So thanks to everybody for all their support. We really appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great week and weekend. GameFace is up and out.